Is wonderful to be back. I am sorry for leaving you all for so long. I was doing something quite important. Apologies for that. But it's good to be back just in time for playoffs to really get into those final moments. My name is Trajan. I'm joined by Shibi and Zathos today on the desk for RUD versus Paragon here in the playoffs. Now, this is it's a very fascinating matchup in the context of the Four Nations. We have rivalries developing between teams like Ruddy and Verdant over the last few years. We've already seen that one play out, but Paragon is establishing themselves as another real threat. They made the grand finals in spring. Ruddy did not, but now they are both here fighting again in the late stage of the playoffs. So, Shibi, for the playoffs up till this point, let's focus a little bit. Let's get a brief catch up for my benefit, if no one else's. How's the playoffs been going last few rounds? What's your general vibe on the autumn playoffs so far?
Chaos. I mean,
Oh, really? I'm shocked. I'm so shocked to hear that, Shimmy, that the Four Nations in chaos.
Yeah, as we work through the playoff bracket, I think there were some unexpected results coming through almost every single round here. I think a lot of people were surprised on how Paragon ended up 2-1ing Belfast Storm. A lot of people are confused on how Ruddy ended up in the lower bracket final. I know on that series, majority of the desk, I believe, other than Luna, predicted that Ruddy would have won that game. But now we see Verdant on the grand final side, and now we've got a lower bracket slugfest between two teams that maybe didn't expect themselves to be here.
Yeah, I mean, Paragon do have a bit of a I don't know how we got here energy to them, just in game, out of game, you know, on Twitter, it's all the same. So, but they have wound up here once again, inexplicably. Here they are in the lower bracket finals. Zathos, we've got chaos reported from Shibi. I can see already just the fact that Nuke just got dropped out straight away. Venom Crest straight out. These are big names that are rising up, performed so well here. How is this playoffs kind of how closely aligned to your expectations has it been? Did you expect to have these last three teams here, or do you think someone is particularly absent?
It's difficult to say because for me, with the last series of Paragon versus Belfast Storm, everybody thinks that Belfast Storm most likely deserve to be here. But of course, Paragon coming with that incredible base race at the end, able to pick up the victory and getting themselves in towards this situation. And when I'm thinking about the three teams that deserve to be here, you just have to say the three teams that made it here. It's great and all saying, look, you're probably the better team. If you didn't make it, you didn't make it. There's no point carping on more about different teams.
Yeah, you got to hold that. You got to hold that all the way till the next season. We'll have to hopefully see them back later on in the expanded Four Nations back in 2025. But let's focus it on this matchup just a little bit. Ruddy versus Paragon. Now, we saw on that playoffs graph bracket that they have played each other before. Ruddy with the 2-0 victory over Paragon in that instance. We actually have a list here, thank you, production, of all the times these teams have played together. They are becoming quite familiar with each other, in fact, over recent years. And Ruddy does have a slight edge. Is that a 1-game edge? I think they've got that 1 game in the 2-1 loss in the Four Nations Spring. The rest have all been 2-0, so it's a very close run thing, and Ruddy might be finding themselves with another rival setting up. It's not just Verdant anymore. Paragon have muscled their way in there to contest the boys. So let's talk a little bit about that last playoffs match, the 2-0. Shibby, 2-0 for Ruddy. Was this a decisive Ruddy win, or was this one of those 2-0s that does not tell the full story?
I have to ask you the question: are any Ruddy wins decisive? Right? Like, are they ever
I think there
slam
was
dunk?
like a 19-1 victory at some point, but like that might have been the version of Ruddy that was a little less memey, if that's possible. You know, that there have been slightly less chaotic instances of this roster, that's for sure.
Decisive is tough. They've definitely have been like
Yeah.
standard wins. Like, they eventually got to that point. They put
Yeah.
themselves in positions to kind of, seal the victory regardless of kind of what happens within the game here. I would argue, yeah. I mean, the 2-0, I think the box score maybe a little not indicative of kind of like what happened during those 2 games. I think Paragon put up a very good fight. I think they had some
Yeah.
solid answers in their
Mhm.
drafts. I just think they faced a Paragon early in as we kind of, get the replay here. This is a different Paragon team as well, right? Beginning of playoffs Paragon versus what is now into the lower bracket finals. It feels like this team has kind of leveled up and has powered up throughout the playoffs. And I feel like that's kind of the story we get from Paragon every single time we see them. And I think if Ruddy expect to win the same way they did in that early playoff match, I think they'll be in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. It does feel like Paragon needed some time to scale up here. We can see on the VTs here, Zatos, you can maybe walk us through what's going on. It seems like that Paragon were in control for large part, but things just start to go wrong as the game stretches on.
Yeah, it's just very difficult the way that Paragon likes to play. They're all about going for these wombo combo team fights, like you saw the Malphite ultimate into the Seraphine ultimate afterwards. And that's the way that they win a lot of their fights. And I'm expecting them to try and pick the victories up in these games is by just outscaling the enemy opponents. Because when I think about both of these teams, Ruddy mechanically probably have the better players. But if they are outdrafted like they have been a few times recently, that's the chance Paragon might have to be able to outscale and win that way.
Yeah, it's just another analyst that has to lay the blame at Middlecott's feet. The evidence just racks up here. The drafts aren't on point, Ruddy. The story comes back again and again. But if Ruddy, I think, for me especially, I want to latch quickly onto the point that you mentioned about them being probably the most mechanically proficient team. I think that is absolutely true. I think players like Sin, to quickly divert, have been MVP caliber this split. He's always been very good, and there's a lot of competition down in that role specifically. When Lasp is on, he's really on. Spark was legendary last split round in the summer. But Sin, I think, has been on another level. Shibby, I don't know if you agree, but do you think that there is anyone that you would call better than Sin and AD Carry right now in this league?
Oh, it's tough, right? If we're looking at the totality of kind of the playoffs plus the regular season, you could make the argument for Little Pants in some of these team fight situations. I think he's been really good, but I think holistically, I think Sin as an AD carry, I think you could plug and play him on any of these 3 remaining playoff teams, and he'd be a threat, right? Like, you can put him on Paragon, you can put him on Verdant, you can leave him on Ruddy, and I think he would kind of definitively be a top 2 AD carry at minimum.
Yeah, it's not really. It's hard to pinpoint him into a style either. Very versatile player. Zathos, do you think I'm smoking something here? Do you think someone else stands up to it, or do you agree?
It's hard to say because AD carries are only as good as the team around them. If you don't create space for your ADC to hit, they can't play the game. So, of course, being on the best team or the second best team now, Ruddy, of course, he's going to have a good performance. I want to maybe look a little bit lower at Mr. Free, somebody who was on Belfast Storm. I think he was a very strong AD carry at the time, was able to perform on a team that you would say isn't as strong as, of course, Ruddy. So plenty of different opportunities here, but of course, Sin, he has to be minimum top 3 for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see if he can put up a top 3 performance today. We'll see if he's able to carry Ruddy through some games, or maybe if he doesn't even need to. Quickly, before we get into that first draft here, let's talk about predictions, because this, as we say, Ruddy Paragon is split basically down the middle. They're 2-2 in series. They're 4-5 or something like that in game score. And these are the predictions that we have laid out here. It is close, but it is Ruddy all the way down. 2-1 for myself and Zathos, and 2-0 for you, Shibby. Why is it, Shibby, that you think that we're going to get the same, I guess, maybe, as you say, box score, maybe not telling a full story, but still not even a single win for Paragon today?
Like I said, I think it's tough. I think, obviously Paragon have some good answers in the draft, but I think Ruddy as a team and Ruddy kind of individually have some really like star-studded players. Like they can kind of just go Inferno, right? Like Crisis, one of those jungle players that can just take a game over from minute 1 up until minute 15. And Ruddy plays around that so well. I think as well as you have players like Akers who will randomly solo kill his top laner on matchups that he shouldn't be solo killing his top laner in. So I think the fact that they have these players that can kind of kick it up one extra notch, not that I'm saying Paragon can't, but I've seen Ruddy do it more frequently. I don't know if it's like actually a consistent thing they rely on now.
Yeah, it's worth noting that we saw Snapbacks in that earlier clip, and Snapbacks has had, for my mind, a very good season, but plagued with internet issues as of late. So Paragon have been subbing in Maru a lot of times, and they have won both times with Maru, I believe. So, whether that is just a coincidence is hard to say. Obviously, the opponent's changing every time, but they can find the wins with this player. So it's not like the jungle matchup is going to collapse, assumedly, but we know that Snapix is a very strong player regardless. So the draft is coming in just 1 minute here. Zathos, you've given them a win. You've given Paragon a win. I gave them both the win because I think Paragon is just, as you say, as Shibby had said, it's chaos. They've always got that unique style that pulls these wins out of nowhere. You mentioned the Belfast Storm series, right? But why have you given them the win? What do you think is going to give them enough? You mentioned the draft before. Is there anything else, or do you think that's really going to be what it comes down to?
You know when a team just has something magical about them? That's the way I feel about Paragon. They always are just able to find a win. They're not able to. It's great and all saying statistically, yes, sure, Ruddy's the better team, but I think Paragon just has something about them. And the one person I want to look at is Timotopper in the mid lane. What an incredible player who has been able to keep up with Evo in the last 2 games they played against each other. And maybe if they can scale quite nicely with him towards the mid lane, they should at least be able to pick up a win here.
That's the thing. That's what I love about this matchup. There's just every single player. There's so much to talk about. There's so much to go into in terms of the matchups, and the draft is coming just around the corner. We are blessed with the best of 3 series here today, so I'm sure we will get into the other players in a little bit more detail as the series progresses. But for now, let's talk about the draft as it comes up. Shibby, what are we drafting these days? What is the Four Nations meta looking like right now? It's been a month. I don't know what's going on. What's going on?
Well, Ornn is still a popular champion. I don't think Ornn, even if it's out of meta, will ever not be popular here. We've been seeing a lot of Sejuani as well. I think both of these teams have opted in for kind of these double melee solo laners, into the Sejuani, right? They love that. They love pairing that up. We've seen at least Crisis on the side of Ruddy pick up more carry style junglers. We saw him in the Lee Sin not too long ago. When Paragon was playing with Snapbacks, they actually put him on the Gragas. They ran a Gragas Yasuo composition. That might be still on the table, depending on if Maru can pilot those champions like you mentioned. But realistically, I feel like we've been very, at least with these 2 teams, it's been very like, who can get the strongest topside power picks, right? Skarner being taken off the table, Aurora, permabans on red side. I think you have to ban Corki here as well. If you don't, I feel like Corki's just a B1.
Really? But we're back to Corki B1? I thought we got past
No. It's back. It's back.
But is it bot lane now? I saw Last playing it before, or
it's playable. You can definitely play Corki in the bot lane if you want to. And the thing you talked about before is about how strong of a top lane duo a lot of these teams trying to play for. Having counterpick, I think, is crucial for both of these top laners. Akers, of course, has that Camille countering Paragon's top laners now pickup. So a lot of the champions both of these top laners like to have, the enemy has that opportunity. So we'll have to see if Ruddy wants to try and counter with the Camille I talks about.
Yeah, and we've got the Caitlyn answer. Now, just when I managed to get back to catch like the end of Paragon and Belfast Storm, I believe I saw the Mr. Freeze Caitlyn coming out into the last Corki bot lane, and it was doing some dirty business to Corki down on the bot side. So that does mean that if the Corki's going to go down there for Sin, it might not be the funnest matchup. Last we know is certainly very mechanically proficient player. We saw that Nar coming in early as he'd flagged up, and there comes the Sejuani. So you guys have certainly accurately reported the meta to me. That's for sure. But when it comes to Paragon, right, there's always the hint of like a Kassadin mid. There's always a Timotopper special, possibly hiding, waiting in the wings. We'll see what the answer is going to be if it is into the Corki, but Ruddy, they've got great scaling, they've got decent frontline and team fighting locked up. This is a very strong core they've started for themselves.
Feel like the late game scaling mages, right? Something like you said, like the Kassadin, potentially the Aurelion Soul, that kind of stuff. That's kind of tough to pick it right now. You do have some picks, Syndra, Orianna, kind of more wombo combo-y or more burst style champions, right? With the builds we've been seeing, where it's like Storm Surge into Shadow Flame and like these one-shot builds.
Yeah.
But it will be tough. It will be tough. I think Zathos brought up a good point. Timotopper has been handling himself very well against Errol, and it's kind of one of those matchups that can kind of tip either way, 55-45. I don't think any of these guys are going to absolutely dominate each other in the mid lane, unless it's like an absolute nasty counter pick angle.
But none of these two are going to be doing that. I think they're a lot more safer in the type of champions they play. Like the core we see here can be into AD carry, but I think that's mid lane. The thing that I'm really thinking about is this Caitlyn pick. I'm absolutely loving the Paragon has taken away from Ruddy Esports, as it's like they've been picking it up. And the big issue that Jamsu has been finding is if he doesn't get unlocked on the map, he is a shell of the player he can be.
Yeah, and the Caitlyn's going to keep him forced down that throat all the way through the tower. We'll see what the sack pick is going to be, I guess. They're going to go for double range to a Lux, a Karma, even something like a Bard for him, I guess, that's going to really keep them locked in and stop Jamsu getting that value. We'll see if they manage to exploit that one. I like the point that you made about Erol and Timotopper, that they're unlikely to be, you know, scrapping out for that heavy advantage. They're both very strong scaling players, and I remember earlier in the season watching people dash themselves against the rocks of Erol trying to gank this player, and just he's making fools out of 2, 3, 4 people at a time. So I guess, yeah, just let Timotopper scale up in front of him and maybe try and match him later on could be the answer, as mid lane is very much a focus. Ahri, Syndra, and Sylas are removed. The Lux technically, but I imagine this is more of a Caitlyn pairing that's being removed. Let's see what Paragon has for us. If they want to lock in that support, if they want to get something for Timotopper, he maybe knows the matchup with the Corki, right? But maybe not 100%.
I'm thinking
Orianna's
Leona.
still available. Yeah, Leona as well. You can save, like you said, that counter pick. Orianna Wukong, solid composition, right? A lot of good wombo plays into what Paragon wants to do here. A lot of champions have been taken away. I didn't actually think they would go this. Azir Wukong is a pretty set standard 2v2, like mid jungle that we've seen prior, but Azir just has not been, you know, in the meta right now. But I guess as Corki comes in, Azir will also come in here. Azir Wukong, I really love this comp. I really love this mid 2v2 because of the chaos and the AoE that it brings, right? You know, Wukong ultimate into the Azir Sand Soldiers, you kind of get locked in place and get stabbed to death pretty quickly. But the Cassiopeia, that's a pick. That's a pick, all right.
That's the Erol special. That's the original Erol highlight clip champion, is the Cassiopeia, and I don't think that the Azir has got a lot to say about it. The range is pretty comparable, and Cassio's always got the ult to try and stop the aggression, so I like this from Erol. It does mean that we're getting the Sin Corki into the Caitlyn, so maybe a door opened up, Zathos, for this Caitlyn to become a real big problem. Now, what are we going to pair with it, though, if the Lux is removed?
Has to be the Engage, and that's exactly it. You had the Veil, you had the Leona, and the Nautilus available. I don't remember the last time I've seen this champion picked up, and Paragon in the bot lane. You just need something to stop the Engage from Ruddy Esports. Try and play the Shronta back, see if you can have your Azir and Caitlyn carry you through this mid game. But I'm starting to get really concerned about how Ruddy has built their comp, because they don't even have to engage anymore with that Cassiopeia.
Yeah, they've got the Corki and the Cassio, both happy, disengaged kind of backline range players. And you've got the Jax and the Nautilus, the Juani, maybe not the most cohesive team fight coming in. There's a lot of team fight power in the 5 champs, but yeah, maybe not all pulling the same way, as the Rel is going to be the answer. So Caitlyn Rel feels like something that, maybe just because I was never seeing Caitlyn, that I never saw this combination while Rel was being picked every single game, but this, I feel like Jamsu is the guy who's always just going to cling to Nautilus with both hands, no matter what is actually good in bot lane. Into the Rel is the answer. Zathos, do you like this? I guess, do you favor either side? We already know that the Caitlyn can be a bully into the Corki, but with the Rel, as opposed to like a range poke combination with an Nautilus on the other side, are you going to give Paragon a favored bot lane here, or do you think Ruddy are going to be all right?
I think Ruddy are going to be a lot more happy with how this matchup has gone than what it could have been, because I was imagining maybe Emilio here to stop the Nautilus engage with that ultimate to stop the CC on top of it. But still, Rel does the same job, able to create the space for this AD carry to be able to play the game. And then even if they try and engage, I was able to tank most of it. and get themselves out to safety. But when we look at the overall picture of it, Ruddy Esports, they have a lot of damage in their team comp and a lot of safety on top of it, because if they miss maybe a Nautilus ultimate, maybe Whiffs goes a little bit too far, nobody can follow up, still got the Sejuani, still got the Jax on top of that, and if none of that works, they can still go for the find that mid-range so, which he loves in these team fights.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to execute the Gnar and the Wukong into Cassiopeia specifically, right? This composition for Ruddy kind of hinges on how well E-Roll plays here, as well as if Akers and Crisis can kind of get these early dives off onto Kenji, right? Mini Gnar, one of those very abusable champions. You've got Jax plus Sejuani. That's more than enough CC and damage to get those dives off and get those ganks off. If I'm Crisis, I'm just, I'm saying, Sin, good luck in the bottom lane. You're going against Caitlyn. It's a waste of my time to try to bail you out here. Just scale up, get as much CS as you can, and come to these mid-game team fights relatively okay here. I'm fully paying attention to my top side here, which I think Ruddy should do. I think if you spend time going against that Caitlyn, against that Rel, trying to help this bottom lane of yours, you'll just be wasting time.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, investing time into Crisis is never really a bad idea unless you've, picked a Malphite or something. But the Jax is certainly not that, right? It's going to give him a split push threat. It kind of can do a bit of the utility and the carrier element. Certainly a very strong pick to play into Akers' strengths. And as you mentioned before, there's always the risk of that solo kill just coming out of nowhere for him in this season. Now, there's a Jax and a kind of a Cassio on one side, both of which can be terrors in the side lane if you let them go there. The Cassio, of course, is big in team fight, but the 1v1 potential is massive. E-Roll's outplay potential is massive. Plus, they have Akos on the Jax. And against the Caitlyn Azir, the siege is obviously terrifying. But is there a window, Zathos, for Ruddy to just kind of say, we just will not engage with this. We're just going to send Jax down here. We're going to send E-Roll up there. And you guys can do your pushing thing, I guess. We'll clear the way with Corki and we'll split push. Do you think that is a possibility? And secondly, do you think that Ruddy is capable of executing on that possibility if that is where they want to go?
Execute. I put my hands up and said I have no idea. It depends what Ruddy we get.
Doing a split push comp. I don't know.
There's probably about 40% chance of it working, 60% chance it just turns into utter chaos and we just have a ton of team fights. But you made a very good point, though, of can they go for this side lane split pushing pressure against the way that Paragon are built? And I would say no. I think they should be trying to force fights and force them into uncomfortable situations, because the best version of Ruddy the whole entire way through the year is playing with a mid laner and playing for your top lane. The way to do that is having Chrissy's roam up to the map, play for every objective possible, and force Paragon to fight you. Because if Paragon scale into the late game are able to get the amount of tower plate gold that they want to, it's going to be so hard to try and engage onto a Caitlyn and an Azir later on. So Ruddy just needs to play how Ruddy does and just cause mayhem.
Yeah, I guess just bet on themselves,
Yeah.
I think that tends to be when Ruddy looks the best, is when they bet on themselves and they play with confidence that we know that they have earned at this point. Now, we do have a little small break before the games. We're not going to go to a break, though, because I know, Shibby, I know that you have something to talk about in terms of the junglers. We haven't touched on these junglers too much as a combination. We've touched on it a little bit individually, right? But Crisis, and we do have Snepex here today if the draft graphic is to be believed, right? So I wondered if you could expand a little bit on us here on the kind of the matchup between these two players, the interaction between these two players as you see it.
Yeah, I think, this could bloom to be a very good jungle rivalry if these two players end up staying, in the UKEL. But I'm very interested to kind of see how these guys match up against each other. No offense to Maru or anything. I wanted to see Snepex versus Crisis. It's a much better matchup. I'm sure Crisis would have been licking his lips if there was a sub jungler coming in for Paragon here. So it seems like the internet issues have resolved themselves. But I love that both of these junglers have been so flexible in their play styles. I think that's one of the biggest marks, one of the biggest positives for junglers that I look at. Can they play the carry, but can they kind of default to that tank role, the Sejuani that we talked about, the Maokai potentially here? These guys have flexed a numerous amount of different champions. Gragas for Snepex, Lee Sin for Crisis. I think we've seen them on other carry champions. I think we've seen Kindred picked up by both of these players at one point in the season. There is a lot of flexibility, and I think both of these teams more so than any other team we've seen in the playoffs, very much run through the engine that is their jungler. And so whichever one can kind of get more done on the map or play towards their win conditions a lot better tends to kind of give their team that advantage, and they tend to win, right? I think it's, if you looked at all the matches and if you looked at how many times Crisis popped off, how many times SnapX popped off, majority of the time their team is also going to be winning that same series or that same match here. So it will be really interesting to see. I think pathing is going to be really interesting to talk about and kind of where they start, who they focus. I think these two junglers are very, you know, at least not very, but pretty much evenly matched. I give the slight head-to-head to Crisis, but it's maybe like 52-48, if anything.
Sure. Yeah, it's a margin of error right there for sure. Now, because I feel like I've a risk of coming across like #1 Crisis hater on the broadcast this split, because I feel like I'm always the person who's like, but remember that game where we completely ran it down kind of thing? And he has been, I feel, a little bit up and down for times. Now, I haven't seen the last 2 weeks of play, right? And obviously there are still, for every running it down game, there's like a 15-kill Xin Zhao bomb that he drops on the league.
Yep.
So there's absolutely the possibility to go off there. But Zathos, how closely do you agree with the edge going to Crisis with the analysis there with the 52-48? Do you think that Crisis is also favored in this matchup? Or do you think the volatility is too high? What do you think SnapX can bring? What's your response to Shibby's point?
Well, first of all, I think both of these two players are very closely matched. I don't think there's one I'd really favor over the other. But Crisis, being on Ruddy, he's had to stop a lot of fires on his team of when somebody runs a little bit too far. We've all seen maybe a Thresh game where they go a little bit too far. Yeah. You're sitting there. Imagine him sitting there as the jungler being like, guys, can we calm down, please? So he's been able to hold the reins in. And the main thing that I want to think about, if all of us here can agree that it's going to be a 50-50 most likely, this series can dictate how we're going to feel about both these players later on, because it's great and all for Ruddy to get here, but we expected them to be in the finals already, and we can say, sure, it's a blip, but they have to win to get themselves there. So it'd be a huge blunder on his time with the UKL if he couldn't get here. So I would say he's most likely favoured.
Yeah. Well, with that, we are going to pass it over to our casters. Ruddy want to get this win to line up that ever-present verdant rivalry matchup in the finals, or Paragon would love to make it back to their second main split grand finals in a row. For now, I'm going to send it over to our casters, Luna and Rory B, to get into game number 1.
Thank you so much, Trajan and the rest of the desk. I am Luna, I am joined by Rory, and we're ready to get into this game, I'd say.
We very much are. That was a super, super interesting draft. I wasn't sure which way it was going. I was worried they were going to let Errol get his patented Azir at one point, and then Timotopra snatching it out, and Errol coming up with a pretty old school answer. Respect to, like, Cassio is quite rare in the meta as it is, but especially seeing it picked into Azir is a big confidence plan from Errol. One thing I'm very scared about, how is Ruddy ever going to walk up late game?
With much difficulty.
Yeah.
Into Caitlyn Wukong. Nah, I'm not going to lie to you. But like Trajan mentioned on the desk, the Cassiopeia, a mainstay of Errol's champion pool. This was the highlight champion for this player. As I do believe we're having a bit of a technical issue heading into game number 1. So you have our beautiful faces for a little while. Hi.
We were floating voices, and now you can actually... Oh, never mind. Back into the game.
We have been baited.
Just to show that we are real. That was what Zoe was showing there.
Voices in the void.
Yeah. So we're seeing initial jungle clears. SnapX starting at his red buff, and then Crisis doing the same. Just mirroring their jungle clear from what it seems at the start. Pretty unsurprising, playing towards a Jax as a Sejuani.
And of course, the Caitlyn as this Wukong. So we see Akka's going to be able to generate a little bit more pressure than Kenji in the early stages of this game as they just beat each other over the head. One with the lamppost, the other with a boomerang. Akka is really feeling himself there. Could just get walked down. We'll see. Treading across the map, however. But it's standard for what you expect out of this kind of draft. Now, I have to ask, Rory.
Sure.
Because I don't think we're going to see too much action until first objective. Are we going to see a trade, or do we think both of these teams want the same objective? And if so, which one?
So, Paragon should be posturing towards these grubs. And I think Ruddy should be as well. So logic dictates that there's going to be a big 3v3 at this grub pit. But as often happens in the UKEL, the junglers sometimes forget, oh wait, our siege comp is good with more siege. So we may see a trade. I'm hoping we don't see a trade, but it's more than likely that we do.
You know what? You know what they say about Caitlyn and Grubs? This champion loves just eating plates, and Grubs let her do that. You could even see her move up as Crisis looking for a dive onto Kenji on the level 3. Kenji still level 2. Doesn't really have the ability to clear this wave too effectively. I do believe he's taken the hop seconds, doesn't have the hyper speed boost. The Counter-Strike comes in, hop away, flash away from the Counter-Strike, and the dive is stopped dead in its tracks. The little yodel of rage shall not fall today. And with full information on where Crisis is and how far behind tempo he actually is, Paragon can look to capitalize.
And that outplay was so clutch by Kenji, because on the level 1, Akers with that fighting actually zoned him off the first 3 minions of XP. So he's already down XP as that wave's crashing. If he dies there, he is in the pits. And Akers can just run him. Now, with that survive, yes, you blew flash, but you still got your TP. You can still stabilize the lane on your side, as we're seeing here. As long as Crisis isn't repeat ganking Kenji, I think Kenji's quite happy right now.
Yeah, I would absolutely imagine so. And we can see SnapX already back out on the map from that first reset with that Sheen completed, moving back in towards the top side before the camps have even respawned. Potentially looking to double scuttle or just relieve some pressure from Kenji in this top side. With about a minute on either objective, and I believe looking at one of Chemtech and Hextech as first dragon, because the timer doesn't tell me. Hextech is our first dragon. Thank you, production. We are looking to...
Oh! Solo kill?
Errol?
Just... Okay. We don't often see a level 5 Cassio getting a solo kill on Azir of all champions. So... I can't explain what happened there, but I would love to see it going back in time. But wow, that's so monumentally good for Ruddy. It's so strong here. You see this freeze. Akers being able just to sing the pressure of 2 people right now?
I'm not sure on that re-engage, SnapX. I'm not going to lie to you. SnapX wasting a lot of time in this top side. Grubs are about to spawn. Dragon is already up. Kenji's going mega. Stun goes down into the boulder. SnapX has no way back in. As Errol is just running Timber Topper down. These noxious blasts are puffing poisonous gas straight in the face of the bird from Shurima. And there's nothing he can do to stop it.
And this is brutal right now. Because SnapX is going, right, I got my early base. I picked up my super early Sheen. I need to get onto the map and use this basically tempo loss for having to come back into his jungle, right? I need to get onto the map, get some kills, get some pressure down. But now that your mid laner's been soloed, it's like, oh no, this Cassio, now that she's ahead, can probably just 2v1 us if I ever try and make a play mid. So now you're kind of stuck with only looking bot lane. As we're seeing the Grubs now started out from Crisis, likely going to be seeing the Dragon start up by SnapX, and my woeful prediction is correct.
We are just seeing the trade, but in this game state, it does make sense. The Cassio and the Jax both have pressure. They both are very strong compared to their lane counterpart at this point in time.
It's brutal.
So you use the fact the bot lane has reset to take this first dragon away, and a Hextech dragon is good for any composition, no matter what you're playing. It's a TP committed from Kenji to get back into lane here, but Crisis already there off the back of Grubs. And as this wave crashes, we could see a dive. Crisis actually kind of second-guessing himself a little bit. The dragon goes down in the bottom side of the map. See, Crisis able to get onto this red buff as it spawns. We can see SnapX moving up now. Could be a bit of a fight in the jungle.
Sack is coming.
Sack is coming. They know that Crisis is in the area. Blanche House on the red buff. The red buff will go down, most likely.
Doesn't have smite. Doesn't have smite.
Never mind. It is taken by SnapX. Crisis is able to just get out.
So nice cover there from Sack. It was actually a very good idea. But now that the Rel has shown, it is giving a window for Sin and Jamsu to make a play. Last, all summoners up.
Does get hooked. Cleanse comes down, flash away. Jamsu still sank up the tower. Ignite goes down. Sin dashing forward with the Valkyrie. And Jamsu with a cheeky little bit of movement outside, able to survive. Timatopper and Sack are in the area though. The Emperor's Divide is available. Jamsu gonna hook the wall, try to get away, walk into the alcove. You have to pick. Are you going for the Corki or the one-shot Nautilus? And the decision has been made. Jamsu tries to get a hook through it, lands onto the alcove, and with no way onto Sin, it's just gonna be the 1-for-1.
But now, Timatopra, stuck in the bot lane, doesn't have that TP available. Errol actually doesn't get the plate shed. I'm surprised with those 3 grubs. I thought it was a guaranteed single plate at least, but now Lasp is going into the mid lane. This is going to hurt Timatopra's XP gain as he's having to share it with the Rel. It means Errol's going to get even further ahead than this Azir, even with the Azir picking up that crucial 300 gold from the kill.
I believe that plate just went down and the gold went to nobody as well, with Errol deciding to take a safe reset on that timer, which is really rough. It didn't even go down. Never mind.
Go down.
Never mind. I am talking out my backside, apparently.
So, Errol's build is very interesting. We've got a bit of a jumble sale of itemization going along here.
It's just Leandries with a tier rush, right?
Yeah, I suppose, but you don't often see Leandry's Rush on Cassiopeia. Usually, you're seeing either an Archangel's Commit or you're going for another Lost Chapter item for trading in lane. But I guess when Errol's going, well, I'm already soloing Timatopra in this lane, I don't need the mana. I'm already getting the natural push. I don't care. So yeah, I can just commit to this Leandry's.
Very good in this game as well with triple frontline. 2 of which being health stack and bruisers. Very happy with the ability to just rush that Leandries. It means when we start to get to some of these early objective fights, that Cassio is going to shred through the opposition. 3 members strong on the bot side. Snepex showing up here. It's Kenji just taking a bit of a trade under the tower with Akers. See Jamsu and Sin stepping up aggressively. Sack looking for the crash down, doesn't quite find it. Lands onto Jamsu. Stun goes down. There's Sejuani as Crisis was hiding in the bush. And Sack is the first one to fall. It's traded back by Snepex. But suddenly this Wukong has no health. And your Caitlyn is being chased out by a Sejuani. Last left in the 1v2. A flash forward from Crisis allows for the stun. And Sin should be gifted a triple kill in the early stages of the game. Pre-10 minutes, Ruddy come alive.
It is an amazing read from Crisis, being in the exact spot he was needed to counter that gank. Sin already up gold from the previous dive onto Lasp. Look at the item difference! The Corki has Phage, has Sheen. Caitlyn just had Dirk. I don't think she had the she didn't have the cloak, but she had Dirk pickaxe. There's no way she's poking out as much damage as this Corki, especially in the early game. We're seeing a 2-level lead. Kenji might be getting dove, has Mega Nard, doesn't have ult.
Just looking to gain pressure for the second set of grubs. Snepex is in the area. Akka's moving down now. Sack has arrived as well. Just going to clear out some vision. The first grub will go down. Lasp still in the bot lane getting free farm. We see a 3-on-3 with 2 members from Ruddy moving. And the stun comes down onto the first member. Snepex having to use the Warrior Trickster to safety. Timatopper dashing over the wall. But Snepex, there's no safety to be found. Sack has to flash away. And with 5 members strong and a beautiful dredge line at a Jamsu, the grubs are Ruddy's, as is the entirety of this early game.
And the grubs just got to watch one hell of a show here. The take gets stopped, the fight gets turned, and Ruddy just has more members, just has more gold right now after that fight coming out. Over 3,000 gold ahead, approaching 11.5 minutes. Paragon's comp is falling apart. Lasp is trapped in the bot lane, unable to participate. And you've got to wonder, how do Ruddy fail at this point? If they were to ever fail, I don't see it possible.
We are 11 minutes into this game. It is a 4,000 gold lead in favor of the Ruddy Ducks. And Sin, an absolute menace. 4-0 and 1, a full Trinity Force to his name. Errol, solo in the bot lane, being collapsed on by Snepex and Sack here, but Vision should call this play off. Last is walking back down, but Snepex, uncertain what he wants to do here. Sack knows he's not on vision. Could look for the flank as Errol now caught between a rock
That's
and a
bad.
hard place. And the sniper rifle of the Sheriff. The stun goes wide from the shattering strike. As the ult comes out, lands onto Sack. Sack takes a lot of damage. Will get traded 1-for-1 as Errol goes on a killing spree. But Last takes the shutdown with happiness and gets himself on the board. And with this dragon alive, Paragon should find their prize.
And that is huge for Last. Sack doesn't really care about dying, to be honest, at this point. Errol really, really upset that he dies in that position with the flash available, but 3-on-1, Paragon like those odds. Now they're able to pick up the second dragon, which is great for them. Unfortunately, Ruddy were able to get all 6 of those grubs now. So I want to see how Ruddy are able to utilize those grubs in this position. Are they just going to siege mid? Because Caitlyn outranges you, Azir's outranging you. You've got to send your Cassio to the bot lane, and you've either got to stack numbers top or bot and really utilize your objectives taken.
Well, first tower did go down in the top lane. Ak is quite happy to just push along that one. See where he can get to. You can see the bot lane of Ruddy happy to sit in mid lane, and with Last on his way back, the first couple of plates on this tower should fall without too much trouble. Sack could look for a flank, able to get over the wall with the Hex Flash, but Valkyrie to safety from Sin is solid. No objective for another couple of minutes. Herald in maybe just under. So we might see a fight there, but with the gold lead that Ruddy are sitting on 5,000 at this point, you have to wonder what Paragon can do in this situation.
And maybe the answer is stall, but that's going to be even harder with this extended siege power. We're now seeing numbers sent up towards this Rift Herald. It's unlikely to be contested as Snepex going, I can't really kill anyone in a fight right now. I can't survive very long in a fight right now. I'm just going to do my camps. But if this Corky's getting even more plate gold, he must be a grand up on this Caitlyn right now. Oh, no, significantly more than a grand up.
Nearly 3,000 gold on Last. Sin proving why he is one of our top 80 carries split after split. They faltered in the upper bracket against Verdant, and they've learnt from their mistakes. As Snepex potentially looking onto the bot side alongside Timotopper. It was mentioned in draft, the power of the Azir Wukong, but the Herald, it's been dumped mid, and suddenly you see every member of Paragon converge. Akers is waiting on a flank. Errol, the only member of Ruddy, not in the area. This first tower should fall. They may get another charge off with Snepex here. No smite available. It will just go down regardless.
Timotopra moving to cover the mid lane has allowed Errol to get a bit of a push. Now moving over, going to be able to clear out vision. Bases coming out. Man Immune picked up by Sin. That's an entire item in his inventory over Last currently. 2 minutes to the dragon. Can Last get any gold in him to try and match this itemization? I am pretty doubtful. Kenji still without his first completed item. Akers is really just running this lane right now, but with Snepex covering, an overextension from Akers could spell death.
Certainly could, but it's a Wukong in the jungle, and as far as Jax is concerned, he quite likes those odds. The Grandmaster at Arms does not care for auto attacks, and what can Wukong and Na do but auto you a few times? We can see Snepex opening into this bot side, getting ready for this dragon to spawn in 1 minute and 40 seconds. All of Ruddy are in your bot side quadrant. Your bot lane tower soon will cease to be yours as the ground is conceded to Ruddy, and you can do nothing but look on in despair. The lack of vision is absolutely terrifying for Paragon.
Yeah, they have 2 wards out in this bot side jungle that they've just whacked down, but it's so oppressive right now. Crisis, Sin, and Jamsu can walk anywhere they want, really, because there's no answer to them. Snepex just doesn't have the damage. Gonna make a play onto Akers, actually.
They are looking. Sack is here as well as the counter-strike lands onto both. The Cyclone comes in as Grandmaster at Arms is popped. Leap strike away onto the teleport. The flash away from the crash down is good as Errol has arrived and the miasma stops every member dead in their tracks. Snepex goes flash dashing back in with the Ember Strike, but leads to death, and Errol You're left in a 1v4. You give yourself over. You take the jungler, but at what cost? As Sax gets out with his life as well.
And oh my days, that's a lot of gold going over in the side lane. Sin's able to pick up solo
Teleport
tower
flank.
gold for the tier 2. Kenji's on the flank. Sin
Kenji is
getting blasted.
looking in the mid lane. Sin very low, as you say. Kenji's looking for it. Sin has been found. Boomerang comes in, Valkyrie forwards, barrier is not enough, he's shut down by Kenji! His lane phase was bad, but he's come alive with the fires and the roars of the raging Yordle as he enters the map.
So, Kenji positioning himself in the bot side now. Timotopper, however, does not have teleport. It's going to be matched by Akers, which means
Sack.
a dragon fight. Oh dear, Sack
Sack.
might be caught out.
SnapX is here. Crisis able to get the stun down, but Aftershock doing a lot of work here. SnapX still chasing forwards. Teleport coming in from Akers as the Dredge Line lands. It's only onto the clone. Kenji going out of Mega though. Menina, what can you do in this situation? Neither of your damage dealers are in the area, and Errol has just arrived, teleporting in, walking in alongside Akers TP, and this dragon will be forfeit. You may have got the first 2 Paragon, but it does not matter.
Complete vision control from Ruddy in this bot side meant that even though they were Paragon were able to pick up Sin, they had to spend so much of the time he was dead clearing vision in their bot side. That's what Sack was doing, but Sack was doing it alone. Got caught, and then the collapse began, spelling the first dragon over to Ruddy. And now a lot of defensive vision coming out from the side of Paragon. They're just trying to scale. Unfortunately, Lasps is gone for this collector build, which really heavily falls off more than most crit builds at 3 items.
It will just be a standard crit build. I just don't think there is a better first item for Caitlyn currently, because you don't really care about attack speed, nor do you really care about mana.
I've seen a few trying out Yuntal, but
It's,
it's a
Caitlyn
bit
as champion
funky.
just doesn't value attack speed much.
Yeah, that's a fair play, but nonetheless,
It is
one
still
of the
going
main
too far.
damage sources from Paragon is about to hit a damage trough. Just as Baron
Certainly
is
is.
spawning.
Yeah, until you get that rapid fire and hit that 3rd item, your damage, it really is going to suffer. But this Infinity Edge will help that a little bit. Of course, if you do manage to crit on one of those headshots, the health bar of the enemy is going to evaporate. So, you've got that going for you, I guess.
Snapix now able to pick up this blue, but no carries are able to get that bonus resource. Now, Timotopper is getting collapsed, but Paragon
Certainly
are
is.
here.
Miasma goes down, Glacial Prison lands, and while the Emperor's Divide can do something, it is not enough. The Emperor has fallen, and the Empire along with him, as this top tier 2 is now in the sights. The Sack able to land a Shattering Strike. SnapX and Kenji able to find Akers in the mid lane. The Counter-Strike doing a lot of work, but Akers will still fall. But you've still got 4 members strong towards this top side. You're able to trade 1-for-1 on kills, but you still lose your top tier 2 Paragon. You are 5,000 gold down. You've stabilized the lead that Ruddy had over you, but it still remains a canyon.
And it's so brutal because every time Snepix and Kenji are teaming up to kill Akers, Ruddy are just answering with a tier 2. Right? So that gold is actually always net positive for Ruddy in the grand scheme of things. So every time Snepix has seen a fight this game, even though they might have been positive, actually, as far as team experience or team gold goes, very much in the negative.
That it most definitely is. Next dragon spawning in about 2 minutes. We'll start to see vision set up for that very, very shortly. Nearly on 2nd item for last tier 2 items for Timotopper, and I'd imagine getting close for the top side of Kenji and SnapX as well. However, you look across to the other side, all 3 important members have already hit that 2 item importance.
Errol's almost got Zhonya's.
A very nearly fully completed Zhonya's in the inventory of Errol, as you say, Rory. And that makes things very, very dangerous. This Cassio, who you were struggling to kill initially anyway, just having so much more survivability in her kit makes it so hard to find the catch, especially if that Petrifying Gaze is utilized to near perfection. It's Crisis stepping into the enemy jungle. It's the Glacial Prison tags on Timotopper. Beautiful frozen Arctic Assault into Flash. forces Timotopper to flash away in return. Sack now being run down by Errol. No Rylai's completed, so it is just the base movement speed of Rel you are relying on here, but an unmounted Rel, very slow. With the Baron up and available, and every needed member in the top side, Roddy can just threaten.
But Snepex was just seen by that vision plant hit by Akers. They know that he's posturing around this dragon. If Ruddy really wanted to, they could just clear out and move back towards this Baron. You have Corki, Cassio. You can rush this so hard. Yeah, they know Snepex is around. They are actively hunting him right now. But frankly, I think it might be wasted time even. You had your waves pushing. I think there was an angle there to try and force out Kenji's TP.
Certainly could have been, as you can see Kenji here. Just catching waves into Akers, but the entirety of your bot side quadrant as Paragon is forfeit in the current moment. 6,000 gold in favor of Ruddy thereabout. They're slowly but surely ballooning this to an insurmountable lead. So we can see them looking for this bot lane tier 2, the last tier 2 standing for Paragon on the map. Akers taking a bit of chunk damage from Kenji, about to go mega. If you look for something, now is the time. The teleport coming in from Timotopper, and the disengage is through. Cyclone onto Akers, doesn't do much of anything as Crisis able to stun up Sack on the side. Cyclone onto Akers again, doesn't lead, but a beautiful crash down Magnus Storm in Emperor's Divide! Rips Ruddy to pieces! But on the back you found Errol, and a beautiful petrifying gaze stops everything Paragon wanted to do. The carry is carrying no longer. Errol, Div 1 talent for a reason. It is a 3 for 5, and the bot lane tier 2 will fall in favor of the Ducks.
And Paragon found the engage. Sack got a 3-man Magnet Storm into the Mega Gnar ult, but they forgot about the snake in their boot, who sunk the fangs in from the back of the fight, getting 3 stuns with that petrifying gaze, just spelt certain defeat for Paragon. Now the dragon is up. Crisis teaming up with Errol, going to be taking that. It's going to be 2 dragons apiece. Sack managing to get a bit of vision into this top side in this downtime could be incredibly important in the next 2 minutes, as I expect Ruddy have their eyes fully set on this Baron. Errol likely to base, pick up 1 more item, and look at Timotopper. 2.5 items, that verdant barrier not being the most impactful compared to something like a blighting jewel from Errol.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very difficult to play these fights out from here on out. You are at such a gold disadvantage. 8,000 gold in favor of Ruddy. This Baron is definitely where their sights are. 2 dragons apiece, but every void objective this game has gone across to the Ducks. I mean, it's their home. They're sitting in the river.
Yeah, they're happy
We
as
see them
Larry.
all the time. They are happy as Larry indeed. So we'll see what Paragon can get done. Now, what do you want to see Paragon do for the rest of for the next 5 minutes or so, Rory, to try and come back?
That is a very hard question, because they're trying to scale up right now. They're in the pits. They're trying to just wait a bit longer so their Azir can get to his 3rd item, so Caitlyn can get to her 3rd item. But to do that, they have to be pushing waves. And if they push up too far, they can just get killed and blown up by the snap engage from Crisis. So what they have to do is going to be a bit rude, but they got to pray. They got to pray that Ruddy doesn't take the initiative to start up this Baron. Unfortunately, as I say that, Ruddy start up the Baron, and Snepex is quite far away.
That he is, and this will melt with a Cassiopeia Corki. We can see 3 members strong up towards this top side, but Ruddy, they're peeling off. They're just looking to bait all of Paragon up towards this top side. They know Kenji cannot hold Errol for long. Just gotta clear out some vision.
Bouncing the waves right here. Timotopper sending some soldiers in to try and poke, but Kenji's getting run down by Errol. Sterex popped. That is a huge cooldown.
That it is, and there's no Mega to be seen anytime soon either, as Akers starts his back up. Snepex finds way onto Sin, but the Cyclone may not be enough. Empress Divide knocks Crisis back over the wall, and Snepex trying to do something. Another beautiful engage from Sack, but there's no damage around as Errol has TP'd in. Kenji's now on his way. Minesman doesn't tag anybody, but is able to kill Snepex off on the side. Petrifying Gaze doesn't tag. Sack falls as well, and with 2 members down, the Baron is most definitely Ruddy's prize. Last and Timatopper standing in the wings, maybe, potentially, hopefully looking for some kind of steal.
Fortunately for Paragon, Timatopra there having to use his ult very defensively, pushing Ruddy's offense past the wall. Actually, now doesn't
greeted
have
for the wave.
ult, as the tower has flash. Might
Just
see
gonna
if
look for the
I-
reset. 3 members strong. Look to go for the wave as Timatopper just running away now. Flash away from the counter-strike. This is a lot of resources invested to try and escape something that may not be escapable. Leap Strike comes forwards as Timatopper now going to get tagged up by this next counter-strike. Never mind.
the minion block.
The minion block is indeed insane, and Errol goes on a rampage. A lot invested for very little reward, buying time for no real effect. Timatopper falls on the top side.
And unfortunately, Paragon have no damage in these team fights. Dak is engaging well, but engaging too far away from the carries. That paired with the guaranteed Nautilus ult, just tagging Lasp in every team fight, means Paragon aren't able to utilize the good timings they have on these high value abilities. Kenji now going in on Akis, go do a little bit of poke, but that now going into mini Gnar means Crisis can capitalize on this lane, and Kenji is left out to dry by his team. Meanwhile, Errol's pushing in the top side, going to be answered by Lasp and Timatopra, but that means likely bot tower's going to fall.
As you say, Kenji left out to dry. Top tier 3 falls. SnapX falls in
2v1s.
his own jungle. And Sin is just a massacre waiting to happen in this game.
Sid just
3 members
strolled slowly at Snepex and Sack and came out at half HP with Flash up.
Your 2 carries are all that stand between you and going down to match point as Crisis finds the Glacial Prisoner onto Lasp. Good cleanse away means this Caitlyn's alive for a little bit longer as the first inhibitor of the game falls. And the other 2 being open means this game is not long for the Rift any longer. Crisis looking forwards, looking for Timatopper, smites off the Banshee's Veil. The Sack is now out, finds a stun onto 2 with that Shattering Strike, but the Baron empowered minions, they're doing too much. Kenji is alive, but has to work up to Mega. 5 members strong in the base as Snepex is being melted through by Sin. Shred is incredible on this Corki. This tower is next in the sights of Ruddy as Jamsu finds onto 1. A Petrifying Gaze finds onto another 2. And Ruddy, they tear Paragon asunder in game number 1. They take us to match point and they're ready for their rematch against Verdant.
And Ruddy took the meta pick and the pocket pick, and my god, did they perform.
Absolutely did. 15,000 gold in the lead. A 5,000 gold lead at 10 minutes alone. This was not a game. This was not even a massacre. This was a masterclass from Ruddy in how to shut down a team from the get-go. Beautifully done. And if Paragon have any hopes of making what is essentially back-to-back finals in our splits, they've got to step up, they've got to step out, and they've got to suddenly reverse sweep this series. We will be back to break this game down very shortly, or at least we won't. The desk will. Don't go anywhere. We're going to go to a short break.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Analyst Desk. RUD taking a pretty strong victory over Paragon in the first game. It was not without its foibles as a game, shall we say, but it did look pretty RUD favored from the get-go. They certainly were smashing that early game, and this was where we weren't 100% sure about how the early game was going to pan out with that bot lane particularly. But Zathos, we've got a couple of replays here to show how the bot lane actually did pan out, but why don't you just walk us through what RUD were able to achieve in this so-called losing bot lane matchup?
Well, I love how you laugh there, because it was meant to be losing for them. Corki into Caitlyn is horrendous. You're not meant to be able to ever get on top of it because of the net, but still, they found a way to make it work, and that's exactly what we're going to see here. As a big thing for Sin is he actually Valkyries a way to bait the enemy team in. Of course, Sejuani nearby, get themselves the first kill, and then Sin afterwards is just able to play this beautiful front-to-back team fighting comp, and everything that Paragon was meant to do, they just weren't able to effectively do right, as they kept going into range of Sin when they should have just accepted that they can't win early game, scale up towards the late game, and just play around that Caitlyn. And it all comes down to, I just wish we saw the Melio instead. I think the Rel, yes, it looked good. Yes, we saw 3-man ultimates, but I think that champion could have just done so much more for them.
Yeah, we'll get a little look at least some positives from the Rel later on, but yeah, I think the Enchanter duo would have gone maybe a little better right here, that's for sure. That lane was not good, and I remember we were all just watching that in the green room, and we saw Corki 4-0, and we were just like, oh, the game's over. Game's over.
Yeah.
It's unlosable right now. How are we supposed to lose? And to be honest, yeah, it's pretty lucky that they had that Corki in that position, because they did have a little bit of ruddiness in that mid game. They gave away some shutdowns. There was some messiness here. Before we look at the second replay of a later team fight, Shibby, talk to us a little bit about how this mid lane matchup panned out, because I know you were not the biggest fan of the Azir, and I think we can safely say that you're not convinced after this game.
I just, like, you don't have to pick Azir Wukong, right? Orianna was available on the table, and the knowledge from RUD to kind of pinch that mid lane champion pool, maybe they were hoping that Paragon would pick up Orianna, but if you just pick up like a worse mid laner like the Azir, like it just didn't do anything, unfortunately. It takes a little too long to scale up, especially with the amount of early skirmishes that we get around grubs, around dragons, around, you know, probably the Rift Herald, stuff like that. When you're fighting for all this vision pre 14 minutes, Azir just unfortunately can't really do too much. And unfortunately, you saw even at like the 3-4 item mark when he was getting to it, he had Banshees, right? Like he was Liandry's, Nashers, and Banshees. And it's like, well, this champion's not going to do anything for a very long time. And when you're staring down like a 4-0 Corki, a 3-0 Cassiopeia, clock's ticking, right? Clock's ticking.
Yeah, and it did run out before too long. We do have a replay to show of a later fight, and Shibi, I'm going to give this one to you as well to follow on from this point, because this is the clip where we saw the Rel do the one thing and the Azir do the one thing, but sadly there was another factor at the end of it called E-roll that kind of ruined it all. But just walk us through Paragon's attempt to break back in the game here.
Yeah, so they're playing a 1-4 right now on the side of Ruddy. Paragon recognized that this is probably their best shot. Timitopper gets the TP in, and we really honestly see a beautiful magnet storm from Sack here, gets onto like every single important member that is in this fight. But as you look, E-roll gets a nice flank. He just walks from mid to bot. Massive petrifying gaze, and you kind of see what happens when there's like a 3-0 Cassiopeia on the enemy team. It doesn't matter if you win the 4v5, she's worth like 2, even 3 champions at this point.
Yeah, he's just walking into melee range. You're going, no one can do anything to me. I'm just going to walk into the middle of this fight and just click and just right click people, maybe the occasional left click people. You know, it's very simple, and E-roll just kind of walked it over there. Massive E-roll Cassiopeia performance. We're used to saying that by now in the UK and NLC scene, and we're just gonna have to say it one more time. But before we get into that second game, there is a matchup that we want to highlight a little bit more, because we had a graphic prepared for it. It hasn't come across as much in the actual matchup side. We want to look at top lane, because this is something that I think has a very interesting dynamic to it. Kenji being a very young player, newly grafted onto this PRG matchup, and then Akers, who has just been here forever. He's been around for so long, the veteran Zathos. Talk to us a little bit about each of these players, maybe what they bring to their teams, and how you think this matchup is maybe going to develop as this series continues.
Well, I think it was very important that you mentioned that how young Kenji truly is as a player. This is a stepping stone, the UKL for him. He has so many ambitions to go higher and higher. And Akka is somebody who has been around a little bit longer, been in a few higher leagues. If he's able to match up against Akers like he did in that last game, they can look very comfortable here. But the big thing that I've been thinking about with this matchup is, does anybody have a champ pool that favors them over the opposition? And Akers with that Camille pick, I talked about it last time, a possibility of that coming out against, of course, Kenji's Gnar. That could be the thing that broke the camel's back and gave themselves the opportunity, as Kenji did a fantastic job in that last game at soaking up so much pressure, as when they look for the tower dive, able to hold the wave to make sure that they can't actually go for it. And then even when they can, using the double E onto Gnar to be able to survive it. So a really high mechanical skill player, and most importantly, he can just read the game to a really high level as well.
Yeah, it was kind of it was like the Akers moment, because that's when I saw this coming on. We were watching, I was saying, this is like an Akers situation where you're getting 2v1 dived, you've been left to fend for yourself on the Gnar. Have fun, we're trying to win through somewhere else. And Kenji manages to get the same 1v2 outplay that you described, and it looked for kind of Akers-esque and a very strong response from a young player who we normally see on the carries. The Gwen was the champion chosen to illustrate this player for a reason. The carry is our most favorite style for Kenji, and now it's something that Akers can also bring, despite the Cassante picture that is also very common for him. So Shibi, how do you feel about this top lane matchup? Do you feel like Kenji, do you feel like it's pigeonholing him to say that carries is the only thing this guy can bring? Do you think that Akers is able to actually, do it all, or do you think we're overplaying that? What do you feel about these two players right now?
I feel like for both of these teams right now, just the way they're drafting and the way that they've been playing, feels kind of like top lane is a little irrelevant, right?
Yeah.
just a smidge, as like it didn't really matter. We saw Akers like giving free gold out in the mid game on the Jax. Like, yeah, it's like yeah, I don't really care about the champions that the top laners are playing here, because realistically, both of these guys are like, or both of these teams are just like, hey, we're going to pick Corki. We're going to pick Cassiopeia. We're going to play Azir Wukong. We're going to play for like these rock'em sock'em robot team fight compositions. And top lane is just like, yeah, whoever gets dove, gets dove. Good job on Kenji for outplaying it. I do think Ruddy was a little bit apprehensive on the redive, but realistically, it feels like these guys are just kind of left to their own devices. And if that's how it's going to be, that's how it's going to be. And unfortunately, Kenji's just going to have to deal with that. I feel like Akers plays those like isolated top lane 1v1 matchups a lot better than most in the UKEL.
Yeah, and I know it's nice for me. I enjoy watching those moments from Kenji for sure, because coming into like a four-man roster that made it to grand finals before with, I believe it was, they have Refresh? I think they had Refresh in top lane at that point. It was now on Verdant, who was waiting in the winner side of grand finals at this point. It's some big shoes to fill. We remember the Camille from those days as well, a very impactful pick, but Kenji had, I think, was a very different player, but being brought into this very unique Paragon formula that it can sometimes be hard to slot into. But I think he's actually done a very good job, and I do hope we get to see a lot more from him. You know, there was a decent chance that we were not going to see Kenji playing in this split of the Four Nations, and I'm very glad that he is still here, and hope we get to see more of him, because he is able to perform at the highest level. We have seen that out of him, and maybe we'll get a chance to see it again in this series, or maybe it will just simply be top lane Island and Warlock and Cassio, and that's what we're thinking about. And enjoy your Nara game, I suppose. The draft is coming up very shortly. What do we think is going to be adaptation here from Paragon? Because we had the Azir we didn't love. I think we're probably not going to see that one again. It's probably fair to say. But the Caitlyn, you know, maybe good idea, maybe bad pairing. Zathos, do you think that, what do you think Paragon could take away in terms of, do you think they need to do a whole rebuild on the draft strategy to deal with Ruddy, or is it a little bit tweaking that might get them where they need to be?
I definitely think tweaking is going to be the best possibility. First of all, ban that Corki, either in the mid or the AD carry position. It's just absolutely busted. 4-0 completely takes over these team fights. And if that's off the board, if you pick yourself an AD carry up that can scale very well into the late game, but most importantly can pair well with an enchanter, Caitlyn of course being one of them, even an Ezreal a possibility for this Paragon side. And if they start building this late game team fighting comp the way that they always play, they could win here, because last game, it was still Paragon, but it wasn't the Paragon I remember, because they didn't have this late game insurance that they usually have with their team comps.
Yeah. Shibby, do you concur? What do you think we need to see out of Paragon here to keep this series stretching?
Yeah, if they're still on red side, I mean, Skarner, Aurora, Corki should just be your bans. It's unfortunate. That's just the way the game is right now. If you're on blue side, you can afford a little bit more flexibility, or the strategy that I like to employ is just leave all the OP champions open. Trade one for two, right? Which one do you want?
Yeah.
Do you want Skarner? Do you want Corki? Do you want Aurora? I'm gonna get one of those three or two of those three. Yeah, why not? Let's actually throw haymakers at each other. But yeah, if Paragon is on blues, I'm getting word right now, so they've got a lot more flexibility to play with, and Ruddy kind of have to ban those three champions. I don't think you can give Corki away as well.
Yeah. What do you think the blue pick is, Shibby? If you had those four, like, let's say that if they're kind of free flowing, Skarner, Aurora, maybe Corki, like, is there anything else that, like, what's the power pick that Paragon go to say, now we're taking this series back?
I'm a jungler, so I say Skarner is like the most.
We're talking big about Skarner. I mean,
Skarner's flexible.
Skarner's pretty nasty. But Corki is also like, you could just play anything around Corki and he'll be relevant. It's one of those two. I don't think you take the Aurora. She's not like, she might be like Z minus tier, right? Skarner and Corki are Z plus.
Yeah, I could see Kenji having a strong Aurora in there just by typecasting him a little bit, but for sure the Skarner, what was it at Worlds, like 70% win rate, something disgusting, like absolutely insane.
Absolutely busted champion he is.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into the draft.
Not
Let's see what
acceptable.
Ruddy actually ends up banning. That's the big thing. Like I said, it's Aurora, Skarner, Corki. That has to be your red side bans here, unfortunately.
Paragon
What?
Well,
Snapix, you don't play it?
Snapix doesn't play it, I guess.
Like,
I don't know.
who doesn't play Skarner? And even if Snapix doesn't, it could go top. It could
At
go
this
support.
point,
To be honest, it could probably go mid lane if you want to play
I feel
it.
like Sack for sure can play it. Like, I mean, like, I don't know. That is interesting. We see the Yone come into the first rotation. I believe it was first rotation last time. The Corki ban is going to appear and not be picked up here. Paragon not giving that to Timatopper. I remember Timatopper's Corki back in the day. That was obviously packaged Corki, but the champion's largely similar in terms of the pointing and clicking that can be done here, but doesn't want to go for it. The Nocturne as well, and the final ban from Ruddy potentially going to be the Ashe. So Zathos, what do we do now for Paragon? Because we all the good things been banned. So what's still good here?
I mean, there's so many different options. A jungler can always be a big possibility. Paragon, I know Snapix absolutely loves Xing Zhao. It's something that for the last 5 games, except for, of course, the last one, they've always picked that up. Maybe just go for that simplicity. Seraphine, Xing Zhao. Pick yourself up a AD carry that can stay safe. It's going to be the Ziggs.
Well, that is a bot laner that can stay safe, that's for sure. If they want to do that one, and I'm pretty sure Timatopper could probably play it too if they want to flex it. I have always been an advocate for putting Ziggs mid when the moment comes for it. But Shibby, as a first pick here, given what we had, are we happy with this?
Yeah, I think there aren't too many good answers into it if you play it in the bot lane. It's one of those champions that kind of just pushes and pushes and pushes and pushes, and you can't really do much about it. Varus is fine. You're not picking Varus for the lane matchup necessarily, unless you opt in for that lethality poke Varus, which I highly doubt. I feel like that's terribly useless. The later in the game we go here, it should just be that on-hit variant.
Either. I think it's definitely Sin's preference when he picks this.
Yeah, and I think we just take the Nautilus to remove it from the Ziggs Nautilus pairing. I know it's not in meta, but I think knowing Paragon, they'll probably just want to take that for themselves here. But
I mean,
Crisis is going to back onto Sejuani duty. I feel bad for him, man. This guy is Sejuani 2 games in a row.
He's playing supportive junglers. He's also actually playing support in this game, apparently, by draft as well. So he's doubling up. Jamsu maybe had to step away, and we've got Crisis multi-boxing in the lower bracket finals, which is, we'll have to get the admins on that one, I suppose. But back on the Sejuani, and it was kind of a no-notes game for Crisis, I felt. Like, he played Sejuani, he hit the ults he needed to hit, pressured the lanes he needed to pressure, did the gank top lane. Like, they didn't get the perfect gank off, but he was doing the right stuff, right? It wasn't showing up the wrong places. So it was just like, good Sejuani game. You jungled that game very good. I don't think he even died once, right? So no notes for him just picking that one back up, and we'll see what Snepex's answer is going to be. I always remember the Snepex Vi picks. I don't know why, but they really stick in my head as just like a very impactful pick for him, a kind of like the owner effect, where some guys or some Vi just look a little bit different and they have massive effects on them.
Ooh.
But we've gone back for the Nara for Kenji, which again, fine, liked his Nara in game 1, but the Smolder for Timotopper. So we are still in the scaling house, and we're still in the kind of not going to be doing much mid house, but we're not going for engage. We are going for ultimate damage threat now, Zathos, in the mid lane for Tim.
There's some concerns you have to have when you go for this ultimate scaling comp, and that's, can you contest anything early with Gnar, Smolder, and Ziggs? You just can't, can you?
Oh,
there's just nothing you can do.
Okay.
Well, Blitzcrank.
That's a champion. Good luck contesting. Good luck contesting anything with Blitzcrank. The moment you walk into Dragon, the moment you walk into Krubs, this dude's yoinking you halfway across the map. Like, you're cooked. You're cooked.
And you can't even just like try and wait for Blitz, because this is also, they could just toss a Sejuani ult at you and catch you trying to stare Blitz. They could toss a Varus ult at you and catch you trying to watch Blitz. There's a lot of ways for them to punish the approach to the dragons specifically in that lane. So if Paragon gets the dragons here, I'm gonna have to be questioning Ruddy's allocation of resources, but we'll see where they want to focus that attention. We still don't know what Snepex's jungle is going to be, and we don't know what the support pairing for Sack is going to be. We'll see how much roaming potentially is going to be there. Obviously, we do see the Leona you mentioned last time. We see that paired up with the Ziggs quite a lot as a roamer and engager. It looks like it's a bit of mid, bit of support focus in the bans right here. The Brom and maybe the Udyr as well, just to top it off here. So expecting a little bit of a pivot maybe in the jungle. Yeah, I mean,
you need a tank jungle. 100% for
game.
Paragon. If you don't have tank jungle here, who's actually going to be able to walk in and gain vision from you? The high priority ones, the Sejuani is kind of either picked or banned. Then you go a little bit further down to maybe the Xing Zhao, who's pseudo tank, a Zac maybe. But it starts just getting a little bit awkward for how Paragon want to play it. And so far, I'm never a big fan of these majorly late game scaling team calls, because if Ruddy play it correctly, Paragon shouldn't be able to do anything here.
Yeah, it is always the caveat that, you know, like, you have left the door open to lose in 25, and in theory, this should be simply what happens. But now the Sylas banned in game 1 has come out here with the Cassio and Syndra being removed. I liked the bans from Paragon's side to try and protect Timotopper just a little bit, but the Sylas into the Smolder. Now, Shibby, this is Sylas, this is ranged into melee, but how much can Sylas do here in the lane?
I mean, Ruddy are just saying, like, you have to fight us at Grubs and early Dragon, or you're just gonna lose the game.
You're gonna get all of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ultimates to take here. Gnar ultimate very good on Sylas. I would argue even the Ziggs and the Smolder ultimate. Rel is kind of situational, but like you're not really picking anything that Paragon's side that Sylas doesn't like. And you are completely conceding the early game on Paragon's side here. Like, Ruddy Esports is forcing the issue. Now, if they don't get stuff done early, or if they overcommit and stuff like that, it could be an issue. But this jungle pick, I don't think there's any singular jungle pick that makes me go, yes,
we can
it ties everything together. We waited 5 picks for Xin Zhao when we could have taken it at 1. I'm sure, man.
We wanted it first, and we got it last. You know, we got there in the end. Slapped in the middle. Zathos, from Paragon's comp right here.
What'd you say? Like I'm trying to think of big analytical words being like, oh my god, they're doing this because of this. They just said, okay, we can't fight you, so we're gonna outscale you. We know you're ruddy, we know you make mistakes, so just please make enough of them so we can just outscale you.
We can just read quotes from the broadcast channel instead to talk about the draft.
Please.
You know, the draft mistakes are wild. Not gonna lie, I'm not gonna name them. We'll not do that. There's no way we're giving Silas. One is just in all caps. And what has seen cannot be unseen. You know, I feel like we've got some takes on the draft. Some of those people will be casting the next game, and maybe they can explain themselves a little bit. But just to round it out, Jax again at the end for Akers. Jax into Nar, same matchup top lane. I'm feeling we're probably just going to see a very similar case. We'll potentially see a little Sejuani dive, maybe a little bit of farming, a little bit of side laning, and that's going to be it, right? I don't think we have any reason to.
I mean, you have Sejuani Silas. Like Sejuani Silas is a disgusting mid 2v2. I unfortunately I don't think Zinzao Smolder win that one. I'm gonna chalk it up my highly analytical brain here. Sejuani has 2 melee solo laners to play around, and Varus Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank's not gonna be bottom lane. Blitzcrank's gonna be top lane at 4 minutes. He's gonna be mid lane. Like he's not gonna be bottom lane.
Is there any way that they can win anything? Because the bot lane Dewey versus Dewey is they're like Hail Mary. It's like, okay, we have a Zigzao. Zigzao's strong early, right? And then he just looks all around him and he's just like, he can't work with anything. He has the Rel. He has maybe the Ziggs in bot lane to make a Dewey versus Dewey play, but they don't deal damage towards level 6. So then dive the Varus. That's my opportunity, Paragon.
Yeah.
Dive the Varus. You see the enemy team on your screen, you just run away. If they could cross-map play here, that's as big as a win as they're going to get in this game.
Okay, so we've got dive Varus is our current ideas here for Paragon. Shivy, any other ideas for Paragon to win this game? Any
just damage control, right? So like damage control. Don't lose too much. I think with these scaling compositions, as long as you're down maybe 1,000 to 2,000 gold around 14 to 15 minutes, it's a very manageable game for them, right? But if they try to contest grubs, if they try to contest some of these early dragons, I think for scaling compositions, you just play opportunistic, right? Get what you can on the map, scrounge up as much CS as you can. Eventually, Smolder's going to hit that execute point. Ziggs is going to hit 3 items. Like there is a good win condition for Paragon. It's just going to take a long time to get there, and I don't know if Ruddy's going to give them that time.
Yeah, is Rob Lower still coaching Paragon and doing their drafts? I know he was last split, and we have him on the analyst desk quite a lot. We've had confirmed he is, so maybe we could get him on the desk at some point before like in grand finals or somewhere, just to talk us through this one, because we're certainly all having thoughts about it. But like I say, it's Paragon. We said this going in. They've always got a unique approach to the game and to the draft. Now, Zathos, let's circle this back around, because you were worried about Ruddy's drafts coming in today. That they had sort of kind of outdrafted themselves a little bit in the past, and game 1 as well. We did have some doubts maybe as the cohesion there. What are your thoughts on their drafting here today as a whole? Do you feel like we have seen a market improvement, or is it Paragon more of a Paragon toss than a Ruddy kind of catch?
So first game, I'd say that Ruddy has done massive improvements. They've been able to fix a few of the holes they had. They know they want to play for the top side with Akers and Eero being the main points of their team comp. And then second game happened where, they did fine. Their team comp's okay. But then Paragon just kind of threw their chance out of the window down to the floor, and it's just smashed onto the ground. Their team comp has crumbled in front of us. Of course, there's an opportunity with the amount of scaling they have, but I'm just mostly looking forward to if Ruddy can show us a little bit more clinicalness in this next game, because they could probably beat Paragon even if they're a bit messy, but they're not going to be able to beat Verdant later on if they are this messy. So even if they win the game here, we need to see something more than what we've seen so far from that team.
Something a little bit more. Shibby, for the Ruddy side, you know, we're happier with the drafts that we've seen right here, and we know that the expectation previously was that they would be in the grand finals. You know, people were mostly predicting them over Verdant. They were the favorites to wind up in grand finals, potentially to win the whole of the autumn split. They are now down here again. What are your thoughts on Ruddy right now going into this second game? We had that first game look pretty strong from them. We did still see some of the same issues. Do you think we're seeing growth right here, or is it just that this Ruddy, even flawed as it is just good enough to make it back?
I think you could argue there has been a bit of growth into the playoffs, right? I mean, they are playing cleaner, right? They are still giving some kills over here and there, but they really did execute in game one like what they wanted. They got that early dive off. They recognized that the jungle matchup or the bot lane matchup was flipped because the early support roam from the Rel flipped the bot lane matchup and they started just hammering bot lane, right? Finding fights. Crisis was kind of in Snapex's brain a little bit because he was just there for the counter gank. And like we said, like these guys have a switch. They can turn it up like another notch here. And players like E-Roll, who probably shouldn't really be here, right? It's like that 15-year-old Dominican Republic baseball player. That's definitely not 15, but he's playing in my minor league games. He's playing in the kids' games, right? He's definitely not supposed to be here. So I think Ruddy have seen some growth, and I genuinely think if they take this 2-0, we have a 5-game barn burner against Verdant in the grand finals.
Yeah, all we have to do is keep Little Pants off the source for that grand finals, and we'll have a great one. We'll have a great series. We learned our lesson from the Sunshine Showdown, everybody, and Little Pants will be cut off about an hour before the game starts. We'll hopefully have a good one there. But if Paragon make it back again, the fact that because they pulled that BFS win out, right? 2-1, and I watched like part of game one, and I was like, wow, BFS look really good. I watched most of game two, and I was like, wow, BFS look really good. And then I stopped watching, and I was like, oh, Paragon won? Okay, sure. That there is that just, if you look away, if you blink, Paragon would be like, psych, we're actually just going to win and stuff you can do about it. So I am still very much in the camp that this could just be a Paragon win, just because the draft seems completely unplayable, just because Roddy looks so good in game one and Paragon don't seem buttoned up, and it seems like everything is going Roddy's way. It makes me feel like even more confident this is going to be a 2-1 either way. At the very least, I did predict Roddy at the start, and I'll stick with that for now. But it's going to have to be the Magic, right? They can keep the stats. We at Paragon prefer the Magic, and we'll see if they have enough to bring it to this game number 3. For now, we are going to go back to our casters, Luna and Rory B. They can maybe address some of their remarks in the broadcast general channel about that draft before we get started. Over to you, folks. Try and explain that.
Thank you so much, Trajan. Now, normally, if you've been around, you know that I have my fair share of breakdowns when I'm on the analyst desk watching over drafts. But today, I get to be the play-by-play. I get to be the one to ask the question. So, Rory, tell us what's happened.
So what's happened is blue side of Paragon decided to ban out some of the strongest champions in the game to pick champions they are more comfortable with, which frankly, as much as I dislike it, I'm kind of okay with. What they then proceeded to do is B3 a Smolder, a champion that can easily be slipped through to B4 and 5. They did that with Sejuani already locked, and then they went, let's not get rid of any of the melee mid laners who do really well into Smolder. And a lot of you are still coming off World, so I can understand why some of you may be like, but Smolder actually has a decent lane phase into Silas, can get a lot of grass procs. Grasp got heavy nerfed. Grasp got super
bear in mind
nerfed.
the patch difference.
Yes, exactly. Grasp got nerfed 3 patches ago. On range champions, Smolder has nowhere near as a healthy lane phase.
And Silas was still doing really well into Smolder then.
Really well, yeah. And frankly, I didn't love Ruddy's R3 Blitzcrank. I felt like you could absolutely wait for that to be in the second lane of picks. I don't think that's ever getting banned out. And so if a team bans out Blitzcrank, you're like, right, we've got the mental edge. So let's focus on the game itself. We've talked quite a lot. The desk has talked quite a lot about draft. So we're seeing once again a repeat of this top lane trading. Akka's going hard on Kenji early, using the Jax passive, trying to zone Kenji off the minion CS here more than anything.
Kenji taking a lot of
Isn't
damage, just has started hyper instead of boomerang this game, and has come worse off on the trades for it. As you say, once again, zoned off those first 3 melees, so could be looking for a bit of a dive angle with Crisis pathing up towards that top side. Similar situation in the bot lane with the pressure of Varus Blitzcrank level 1. You can see Lasp and Sack pushed off their wave as well. Errol, however, just being a little bit bullied.
Yeah, likely we won't see Errol actually being able to trade successfully until he gets all 3 abilities to really cycle through his passive. Timatopra will be able to get a few grass procs, get a few Q procs on the Silas, just significantly longer range, really. There's nothing more to it than that. As we're looking at jungle pathing, Crisis actually significantly ahead of Snepex on this clear right now. Taking red buff right now, and Snepex. Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you, observers. Yes, I did not see that the Raptors weren't taking that ward hiding on the minimap from me. So, red buff taken. We're seeing
Right.
melee in the mid lane, but Jamsu is here to respond.
Crisis, Errol, and Jamsu all in the mid lane. As Snapex is over the wall, the wind becomes lightning. A flash away from Timatopper stops the Rocket Crab from going anywhere. Sack is here now as well. Snapex has flash over the wall.
W.
A beautiful crash down into 3-man shattering. Strikers health bars go low. Errol flashing over the wall, able to get first blood. Timatopper trading back onto Crisis. Errol going very, very low, though. It'll be a double kill for this Smolder, and Jamsu can do nothing but run, stunned up. The mana barrier shredded by Shattering Strike, and the flash away is not enough. We have a 3.5 minute triple kill on a Smolder. What is going on?
You know what, everyone at home, you completely ignore any grievances I had with chat. Doesn't matter. I was completely wrong. The Smolder B3 was actually a work of genius. Well,
They read that play very well, to be fair.
Wowza. Okay. Really loved the movement from Sack there. It was an incredible crash down into 3-person Shattering Strike that really threw the fight there. Errol was able to pick up first blood at least, which will mean he maintains a little bit of gold. But with a bounty already coming down for this Smolder, yeah, 400 gold lead, 500 gold lead without wave dying. He's already got 25 stacks of the Q. That just exploded. So he's just so far accelerated. Errol now spending time in the river trying to see if he can get anything done on Kenji because he knows he cannot exist in this lane right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you thought the Silas was struggling a little bit before, wait to see what happens now.
Oh, no,
Errol's
red buff.
kind of gonna get bopped a little bit. It's the red buff doing a lot of work to Errol's health bar. Crisis invading the entirety of Snapex's top side as Snapex opens up towards this top side. But with the pressure in mid and top, Crisis might be a bit too far forwards. Could be collapsed on quite easily as Snapex walking up, not able to find anything when it becomes lightning in his own jungle. As Crisis able to get away with the heist of a lifetime as the top side is completely stolen away. Kenji and Timatop are both moving in, but with no CC. Sejuani able to return to her jungle unpunished.
It's insane that Timatopro got his first base off. And what does he pick up? Both tier, boots, longsword, and a ruby crystal. He's up in every facet against a Silas right now. We're seeing a push in the bot lane. Lasp not really having the ability to match a Varus's push without that early lost chapter. So yes, it does allow Ruddy to just hard push up. And with Ruddy pushing up, it does free up Jamsu. Now, if Jamsu goes fishing, might be able to catch Snepex, but Snepex wrapping round here, not seen on vision.
We can see a bit trading going down as Timatopper's pushed out of mid, but Sack looks for the engage, able to find the CC in, but will trade his life as Sin. Will take that kill, but is traded back by Snepex. Jamsu able to walk away, look to go aggressive onto Last, who had no mana. Then we're able to trade 1-for-1 in the end, but it's really not the trade you want to be taking with this wave now crashing into your tower. Akka's just getting a bit of a plate damage down, able to play the proxy in this lane. Jamsu now looking into mid.
Jamsu looking
just to be annoying more than anything.
Yeah, just going to interrupt a base. Actually, it's quite significant tempo-wise because Timatopper doesn't have that TP. Price.
Rory, it's the UKL trade.
I don't mind it. You know it's fine. It's fine.
I know it's always exciting to see the same things happening every game. It's patterns.
Every game.
We have a story.
Every game.
I was gonna say we're complaining
Okay.
as production is so handily
Yeah.
put up. This is a BLG draft of all time.
I will argue that maybe Paragon are not at the level of BLG. You'll
Who are we to know? Maybe
feel
Rob
free.
believes.
Feel free to argue against me on that, but even
Maybe
still,
Rob believes.
Rob is clearly a drafting genius because currently his Smolder is 3-0 up, 15 CS up on Errol. Already picked up that Phage. Now, I do have to point something out. And maybe it's just the way these lane phases go. But at the end of the last game, at the end of lane phase, Ruddy, never mind, I'll hold my point.
Kenji is gonna get completely annihilated under his own tower. A beautiful glacial prison from the flank of Crisis allows Akers to just quite handily back pocket Kenji there. We were talking about it at the on the desk. The matchup in this top lane, the veterancy of Akers versus the young blood of Kenji, and we're truly seeing it come to fruition this game as Sin just gonna walk Sack down, force that flash out as well. We're really seeing Ruddy come alive with their individual prowess this game.
Yeah, and even with the lead that your Smolder has, Paragon actually down gold here. Crisis doesn't have ult.
Stunned up by Crisis, but there's no damage. There's no damage.
If Crisis had ult, maybe that's a bit of a scary line. As Timitopper did a flash, decided not to blow it, just face tanking all that damage. But yeah, Ruddy actually up 600 gold right now, with that lead in the top side and the bot side being very significant. Anyway, the point I was trying to make earlier, cookies are an absolute terrible rune. Ruddy came out with both their bot laners still having 3 last game. I understand that they smashed, but even still, like, come on. And I just think now that they don't give mana, cookies are pretty useless.
Hey, more max health and a big chunk heal in a very important moment is not the worst thing in the world.
But
especially
it's very
when
situational.
I mean, depends. Max health is never a bad thing, especially as a squishy AD carry. If
But,
that little bit of extra max health could be the difference between you getting one shot and not getting one shot.
but people don't use them half the time.
You still get it when you sell them.
I understand that, but even still, a lot of people just don't use them for their max potential.
They don't.
I think a lot of runes have more value. Just go Cosmic Insight. It's the best rune in the game.
I don't
Just go
want
Cosmic
cooldown.
Insight. We're seeing Sack possibly catching out Jamsu here, forcing the flash out from Snepex as well.
It's an interesting flash to follow, as Jamsu should just be dead to rights here last. Going to get on the board with that one. Not sure if blowing these ins out flash for the support is worth it, but we will see as time goes on if that does become an important factor and is punished correctly. As Snepex holding this wave outside the tower, they're looking for a dive onto Sin on this next wave. Sin sitting at full boots plus a pickaxe has a lot of damage to his name, and every spell from last is going wide. The Chain of Corruption comes out. Sin flashing away from Sack is able to get the 1 versus 2 kill. Might even take Sack down when the barrier comes through. One more hit comes through. Sin in a 1 versus 3 is able to take out 2, and the turret executes a 3rd. Beautifully done by the Ruddy bot laner.
And holy moly, Sin. When you're facing down the raid boss in the enemy mid lane, you went, I don't care, I'm going to be the raid boss now. So we're seeing even more fighting in the mid lane. Errol's going in, Jamsu's going in, Mum is called, but it's Silas's mum. And even though the shutdown goes to Crisis, it opens up the angle for 6 grubs to Ruddy.
Again.
Everything is going up Ruddy right now. Kenji's just going to say hello. Snepex not able to enter the pit. Let's face it, with Akers here. And Sack made the journey up, but might actually get caught here very, very far up in the enemy jungle.
Indeed, he is. Does have a blast cone and a beautiful hook out of Jamsu to pull him out of that one. Stunned up by the permafrost. This kill is going to be donated across to Akers. And Paragon, they look like they had a really good start, and they are faltering at the seams as the Ruddy Ducks reclaim the river as their own. We know, we've said, Sin is one of the best bot laners the UKEL has had, but the rest of Ruddy are pulling their weight as well.
Paragon, and I compared him atop of this game to the Magician. Like, waves his hand, it's who you're looking at. It's who you're looking at, but the magic's not happening in the Magician. right now, because all of Ruddy are the magician's assistant, who are actually doing the trick, who are actually making the wonders come alive. This bot and this top lane are doing so much. Akers, I feel like he's at least, what, 1,300 ahead?
2,500?
Yeah,
I'd say
2,000, yeah, because
2,500.
he's got plates. He's got tons of plates. So he's significant.
About
Kenji going
1,500.
mega.
Is indeed going mega, does have the Nara available, able to get 2 into the wall. Jamsu's there to get the stun, the silence. Kenji knocked up again, stunned up. Crisis taking up the tower.
He's living.
Now it's on to Akers, and there's so much resistances between these two players that with Jamsu not tanking, it does not matter. We're trying again onto Sin in the bot lane, however. The wave crashing any second
I've seen
now.
this before.
Sin not really able to do too much at this point. The spells are actually landing this time. Sack tanking up the tower is going to get caught by a chain of corruption, which means Sack life will be traded. Flash out the tower. One more auto will do it. Sin able to trade for one. Snapex stepping forwards, able to pick up the shutdown onto Sin. But again, it's a 1-for-1 while Jamsu's top side. You've already killed one on the top side. Snapex now been found out by Errol. Lasped is in the eyes of this mid laner. This Zig's just going to be able to walk away for now, but with a Crescent Guard in hand, Errol can choose to fight alone.
And the fundamentals of diving in League is if you see 3 people on the enemy team getting thrown topside, then you simply just go bot. But it doesn't matter in this situation when Sin is always able to trade at least 1-for-1 here. Now, the second dragon going to go over to Ruddy. They are in the driver's seat, and they are going for a trip.
They most definitely are happy to find their way forwards in this game. Sitting on a 4,000 gold lead. We've been here before, Rory. We've been here before very recently, in fact, as Errol picking up plates in the bot side alongside those 6 grubs. The Zigzag coming in to try and clear the wave. Will do so successfully, but with not too much left available. The Herald going to be started up by Paragon, but with 3 members strong. From Ruddy, looking onto Crisis.
Nothing.
Not able to find it, but they've had to peel away. They've had to stop this objective as Akers move down from the top side.
I would love, observers, if you're able to show us Smolder's stacks right now, if possible. As the hook almost connecting. 153. Pretty good as far as stacks go at 14.5 minutes. So Paragon do have that timer. Unfortunately for them, their Gnar is in a pit right now, and I don't think he's climbing out any time soon. It's a Triforce versus a Phage, and anyone of any elo can tell you who's winning that trade.
Certainly it can. It's not an easy one to be playing as the Herald in the end goes across to Ruddy, and they start to bring this gold lead even further forwards. Errol now stuck in the 1v2 in the bot lane in place of Sin, but Errol much higher chance of taking it on and winning just based on champion design alone. Sin happy to sit in this mid lane and just clear waves. The Herald is dropped by Crisis. This tower won't fall just yet, but should come very, very close. See Sack looking onto the flank. Snapex flashing forwards, not able to find a knock-up onto anybody. There's a knock-up onto Crisis. Crescent Guard comes in, hook onto Sack, lands for Jamsu, takes one to the tower. Magnet Storm brings 2 back in. The Zigzag tags onto 2 as well. And then so far it is a 1-for-1, a 2-for-1, as Sin is able to once again turn the tides of battle in the favor of the Ruddy Ducks.
And Timatopra there at the very back end, even committing the flash to try and get some form of max range Q, it looked like. I liked the idea from Paragon that Lasp is coming through lane. He's a bit behind everyone else, so he's not seen. So you go aggressive. But Snapex flashing far ahead from his team means Ruddy are able to make a ton of space back to their tower before Sack can connect anything. Timatopra had just used Mum to clear the wave, so they're lacking that critical damage, and that's why Ruddy are able to scrape back a few more kills in the extended trade.
Certainly is. They're definitely pulling away with this game again. But, as you say, the scaling is in favor of Paragon this game. You have a very good late game skirmishing
Boris
composition.
Jax, so no pushovers.
Paris Jackson, no pushover, but Ziggs and Smolder just play their range so incredibly well. So we'll see. I believe the scaling is in favor of Paragon. The desk seem to think so as well, but we will see as this game plays out. There's no such thing as scaling when you're 10,000 gold behind.
Yeah, that was the point I was about to make is, have you seen how far ahead this Jax is?
Yeah.
3 kills, 34 CS, a tower to his name. He is having one hell of a time. A great performance by Akers, who didn't even see much jungle attention in this lane. Most of it was just accrued through solo play. Even going up to that level 1 where he's just jumping onto Kenji's face and laughing. Now we're seeing a fight up at the top lane. Errol stealing the Xin Zhao ult.
Able to knock the Xin Zhao away with that stolen Crescent Guard and flash to safety. Very good awareness by Errol to survive this play.
Looking
And
bot
it's
lane,
3
though.
members committed to the top side, while Akers free pushes on the bot side. Kenji being collapsed on by Crisis, and Jamso able to hop away from the Glacial Prison, but this tier 2 will fall in trade for the attempted play in the top side. And Sin happy to just move these waves into mid lane, take this tower under Lasp's nose, and while Snapex and Sack are both here, it may not matter. As Jamso goes over the wall, gets hook onto Sack. Crisis comes over with the Arctic Assault and is able to dissuade this play entirely. RUD, they're playing such a good disengage, they're playing such a good cross map, and they're playing such a good game of League of Legends.
Now, Paragon, being aware that even though Varus just used Chains of Corruption, they do not have any aspect of contesting this dragon, try and make a pick in the top side, seeing if Errol will overstay slightly. But no, Errol, great heads up awareness. Akers even coming to cover, saying, I have TP, it's fine, I can go top and match. We're seeing 4 members in red top side, but now Ruddy able to capitalize. Oh, that's a lot of damage from the 2 item jacks on the first auto. Crisis is able to start up this dragon. Ruddy able to claim 6 grubs, 2 dragons. They are getting every objective on the map. Even they've just picked up 2 tier 2s as well. Well, 1 tier 2 and a tier 1 as well. And Paragon are getting left behind in this game.
They absolutely are. They are being slowly but surely accelerated away from 6,000 gold in the lead, or 5,500 gold in the lead for Ruddy so far. And we said it, we weren't expecting them to be here in the lower bracket. We were not expecting them to fall to Verdant in that upper bracket final. And neither were they, it would seem. They want that rematch. If the game keeps going the way it is, they may just get it.
2 items on Akers, on Crisis, on Sin here. Ruddy have a death ball that, honestly, I think they might be able to start up Baron. Like, Varus got some nice damage buffs to his W. Going this attack speed build, he can clear Baron even though it's minuscule on its own, the buff. That really stacks up over 40 or so autos. I wouldn't hate a Baron contest here.
Absolutely not. It's Jamsu looking for a way onto Kenji. You can see they're just playing with Paragon at this point. They're looking for avenues to allow themselves to break the map wide open. Still only 1 tier 2 left standing. Much the same as last game.
Look at the respect Paragon are having to play Ruddy here. Lasp is magnetized to his tower currently. He cannot walk up. He's so scared of Crisis's engage or Jamsu just trying to flash hook that he's trapped here. There's no vision coming down from Paragon because there's no space they can walk in. Crisis now using ult gives Paragon a bit of relief here. It means Tim and Toprak can walk up slightly into the wave. It means Sak can walk slightly into the jungle and put down wards. But even still, it's a minor victory at the best.
Certainly is. Where are we at on stacks now on Timotopper at this point?
Oh, bang
225. We've just hit threshold. Ladies and gentlemen, critical mass has been attained for Paragon. Will it make a difference? Soon to tell. We should have a fight coming up very, very shortly around whatever the next objective Ruddy decide to go for is. As Errol just happy to shove waves in bot lane. Akers doing the same in top lane. And Sin and Jamsu putting the pressure on mid. The map, it's Ruddy's.
It is Ruddy's, but Lasp just picked up that Horizon focus. Snapex picking up that Black Cleaver. with your Smolder hitting 225. If Paragon were ever going to fight, this is the break point they do it when the gold invested into items is relatively even. If you allow Errol to base soon, he will get a lot of components. Oh no, actually.
Errol has just come back out onto
He's
the map.
just come back. I was expecting a TP. I didn't realize he walked all that way. That's on me.
I
Even
believe
still,
Sin is still sat on a good bit of money,
yeah,
though. I
Sin
didn't get a
is
chance to check there.
Sin bought
Yeah.
recurve bows, but yeah, I don't think he had the inventory space actually to pick up that Negatron.
I believe looking at Wit's End currently.
Yeah, that Negatron cloak. For it, so he didn't have
Crisis
enough for
and
the components.
Jamsu go flying onto the head of Sack and SnapX. Not able to do too much off the back of it as the Scryers is popped. Will catch out Sin in the area as well. You can see pings coming down onto this mid lane at tier 2.
As we're waiting for Lasp, who's going to get dove, yep, if he doesn't pay respect. I just want to take this time to say the new Ascent is ridiculously strong on bruises. Like, I think it's something like 25% tenacity for free, as we're seeing the Inferno Bomb being dropped here just for wave clear. That paired with the Aurelia buffs, I'm really not enjoying top lane right now. Yeah, my Kennen pocket pick is really suffering, especially as I'm wondering, could Ruddy have put their foot on the accelerator a little more in the last 2 minutes? I feel like they could have. I think they could have choked Paragon a bit better. I think they could have started Baron. Now they're going to do that. It's going to get spot on a ward, and the TP is going to be forced out. This is all they really want, because they can send Akkers, if they wanted to just do the dragon. But no, he's behind, actually. Kenji's caught.
Kenji caught on a flank. No chance. Gonna make on a beautiful hook through onto Timitopper as well. The Smolder may be at critical mass, but it's critical health. In fact, it's no health at all for the baby dragon. As Ruddy, they finally pull the trigger. They go for the Baron. They find 2. And all that can be done is look for a dragon trade to even up the books for Paragon. And even that may be a little too far-fetched.
Yeah, I don't think they have the damage to do it quick enough. Errol is already on the scene. Ooh, SnapX, you are behind enemy lines right now. So is Sack.
Everybody is. Look at where Akkers
Oh, he has to TP.
TP out from last, will get out fine. Able to leave trick in, counter not going to do anything. And in fact, every member that was left alive able to just recall back to the safety of their base. But that does mean that both objectives, alongside the kills onto Kenji and Timitopper, will go to Ruddy. That gold lead that had just worked its way back to 5,000 is now sitting at 8,000 gold.
Hey! It's wild, this gold lead. I believe Shibby was the only person on the desk to predict the 2-0. So he must be feeling pretty smug right now, seeing how this game panned out. And honestly, I don't even think this game was, as a whole, the weakness of drafts, because we saw the main draft hole from Paragon being filled quite early on, right? That Smolder got the 3 kills in lane. This was just individual and 2v2 performance that really came up clutch for Ruddy.
Certainly was. You can see Kenji hasn't had a chance to interact with this game at all. 0-3-0.
No.
50 CS behind, 70 CS behind his lane counterpart as the mid tier 2 is broken open, the top tier 2 is broken open, and the base is next on the list for Ruddy. You can see there's a bit of a fight going on in the mid lane. Smolder able to get a little bit of damage down, but it's not enough as there's no real catch to be had. The flash blown from the Smolder as well means a next catch does catch properly. The Smolder is dead where he stands. Sack a little bit too far forwards. Hook goes wide onto Last. As SnapX jumping forward onto Errol. A good bit of healing comes through. Good bit of damage coming down, but Last, this Mega Inferno Bomb, it doesn't do anything. Magnet so many tags onto one. Sack buying a lot of time, however. Errol and Jamsu both very low, but Akkers able to take down the mid tier 3 in the meantime. Crisis, Arctic assaulting to safety, flashing away. Kenji flashing forward, able to get involved in this game. Not quite, the boomerang goes wide. Sin looking onto Sack, able to find the first kill. Kenji is still chasing, he's not able to find anything onto Crisis. And Akkers is just running rings around Paragon's base. Ruddy are playing with their food. And they could very easily finish it off at any moment.
Oh, I know Ruddy are just cackling right now. So much whiffed in that fight, and they were still able to come up top. Akers was basically playing PvE that entire fight, just focusing on the structures. Kenji, it was so close. He dealt the damage to get into Smolder's execute range just as the burn fell off, and then wasn't even able to pick up the kill afterwards. Crisis able to rinse and repeat. I don't think there'll be a catch here, but now the choking of bot lane vision begins. Sack trying to walk up, but is unsuccessful. Will get this one control ward, but in the darkness, Blitzcrank is king.
That he is. I mean, even in vision, he's pretty darn good. Mega Inferno Bomb comes down. Akers tanking up a lot of damage. Stack going in. Magnet Storm onto 2. Mom lands onto 3. Akers able to get the stopwatch off as Errol has killed Sack. Sin has killed Kenji. Snepex falls to Crisis. Timotopper takes 1 in Sin, but it may not matter as Errol takes on the Smolder. Last stands against the world, against Ruddy in a 1 versus 3. Akers looking for the reset, does have teleport. Errol sticking around on low health. Jamsu sticking around on low health. A midwave coming in. Akers TPing to this super minion should mean the game. They're looking to end it out all here. 6 seconds on Sack, as you say, but 15 on anybody else. It is a 2 versus 3 for now. Looking for the inhibitor. May not look to end the game just yet. But Sack not able to find a way forwards. Just going to go and catch this midwave. Ruddy, they have annihilated the base of Paragon.
What's crazy is that team fight around the tower was tantalizingly close for Paragon. Every ultimate hit its target, but unfortunately Ruddy are just so much farther ahead than Paragon. They're able to tank all this damage. Timotopra got a 4-man mom. Last got a 3-man Mega Inferno Bomb. Didn't matter. Even though Sin fell so early in the fight, the power of the wallet is stronger. As we're seeing 40 seconds left on this dragon, the Mountain Soul, you've got to assume it's going towards Ruddy unless Paragon pull out one great final stand.
Absolutely. Snapback looking onto Errol, able to find the audacious charge forwards, but the Gnar is available for this Silas. I feel the need to point out 10,000 gold in the lead now, Ruddy, 6,000 of which is on Akers, 3,000 of which, 4,000 of which-ish is on Sin. This is a game of numbers, and Akers and Sin have an abacus ready and waiting. They are a step ahead. In fact, no, the abacus has been left with Paragon. They have full-blown calculators at their hands, and if this dragon goes across, how do you ever kill this roster? 3 Chemtech dragons, a Chemtech soul, 50% damage reduction if memory serves correctly, and you're already leaving them on blinking health bars.
With Baron up in 10 seconds. They do not have many wards in Paragon's jungle. Snepex going to be clearing away this blue buff, but the Baron is going to be started. I do not think Paragon can ever contest this.
It absolutely melts in the face of Sin and Akers. 10,000 gold between them, and they ain't scared.
Zigzag?
Just take a Mega Inferno Bomb. Doesn't quite do the damage as the smite is held. The damage is stopped, and Errol playing massive dissuasion in the enemy base. 1 tower stands protecting that Nexus. Oh, sorry, 1 tower stands protecting those Nexus towers in this top lane, tier 3. This inhibitor, it still stands. A hook from Jamsu doesn't quite tag onto Sack. The Mom comes in to try and clear a wave, but it's a Baron-empowered wave. It has increased magic resist. It has increased armor. Crisis and Errol are pushing them into a corner. Akers is looking. Counter-Strike comes down. Doesn't quite find its target. Stunned up under the tower, but the tower is already dead. Sack goes in. Not able to find the Magnet Storm. Silenced up. Crashdown comes in, but it's not enough. Crisis going very, very low. Timotopper getting whatever damage down he can, but Sin has already picked up a double kill. Errol picks up a killing spree in the meantime as well, and 5 members strong with just Last and Timotopper left standing. This could be Ruddy's moment. This could be their time. Next town number 1 comes down. Mega Inferno Bomb doesn't tag on any meaningful. TP comes in from Errol. The healing is there. Christ, Timotopper pulled down into the depths. Not able to take anybody in for a triple kill at the start of the game. It does not matter. Ruddy advance to rematch Verdant in the finals.
Methodical, masterful team fighting. A 4-0 Siege, they look at these delay tools, they look at the smolder, they look at the zigs and say, I just don't care. I'm going to run at you. And that's exactly what they did. All game, they just sprinted them down.
That they did. And it did not look close. I'll be
No,
honest. It
no,
did not look
no.
close. Ruddy are one of our top teams for a reason and have been since they joined us again in the UKEL. This roster has been kept together so incredibly well. Commiserations to Paragon. They are now Paragoners, but it does not matter. At the end of the day, they tried their best. Ruddy were just that little bit better. Now, that is it from myself and Rory. We're going to throw to a very quick break, but when we come back, there will be an interview with Crisis and then the desk to break down that last game. Do not go anywhere because I am certain you don't want to miss this.
So hold our heads up high and beat the drum to what we love. Risk the fall, or we have felt it all come crashing down from far above. Stars are rising, countless worlds colliding, only one will take it all. Can we bring to fall the giants? Can we make the final call? We are the ones to ignite the darkened skies. The champions.
Welcome back, everybody, to the analyst desk. We have an interview with the victorious jungler Crisis. Congratulations on the 2-0. We did have a split desk, but ultimately Ruddy were favored all the way through, and it seems like that was pretty well warranted with this win. Now, the first thing we need to ask about, obviously, we teed up on the desk that, you know, I am trying to avoid the title of becoming like Crisis' biggest hater in the league just by always being like, remember this game where he didn't have a good game. But you had a very clean series here today. There was none of the kind of the volatility that we had seen at previous times. Is this just a Sejuani thing? And also, Do you think junglers are being babies when they complain about Sejuani jail?
I think junglers are not being babies when they complain about Sejuani jail. The champ is
Uh-huh.
so much more boring than the other champs. But clearly the results show that you
Yeah.
play Sejuani, you win. So
You
I
just-
feel like I'm stuck on it now.
Yeah.
Unless, please ban it. Any other teams, if you want to ban it, that'd be great. I'd love that.
Yeah. You may have to
So,
throw a few games, I think, to get yourself off that one. But
yeah, probably. And maybe if Akaz lets me play other champs, that'd be nice. But no, I'm kidding.
maybe.
I'm kidding.
We guy needs his help up there. Kenji, I mean, that first game, Kenji was dealing with that first gank pretty cleanly, but it seemed like he was under a lot of pressure later on that second game, especially. You guys really kind of brought the hammer down on him. Was the plan to pressure that 2v2, like to go Sejuani melee top lane and just put the hammer on him from the start, or is it just the opportunity, arose, so you went for it?
Yeah. I mean, I was included on the plan until we picked the champs. But once we had picked the champs, then we thought let's bully top, and it
Yeah.
worked really well. I think Niall really struggles on that, and no matter who they brought up, he wouldn't have
Yeah.
had a chance. So I mean, he played
Mhm.
well to get away from the first dive, but I think
Mhm.
the idea is Akaz is getting a lead anyway, and Jax was so good in that game. So
Yeah. So do you have confidence that there is a plan going into a game before they tell you about it, or are we're just flying and we're just kind of, I guess I've Sejuani, I guess I'm ganking top. Do you feel like you're just not part of that planning process, or is there a planning process? You know what I mean?
there's a bit of a planning process. Yeah, no, the boys do go into it. I was just having a nap before the game, so I wasn't there for it.
You gotta rest up. You gotta rest up. Yeah.
But no, I'll be there for the planning for the finals. That's for sure, because I don't want to
Uh-huh.
repeat what happened
I
last
was
time.
gonna say maybe we all need to pitch in for the Verdant planning session round 2 because that was tough, man. I mean, so many. When I came back and saw firstly the result, and I went, "Wow, 2-0." Wouldn't have expected that. I mean, and the fact that so many people were predicting Ruddy in like what is traditionally like quite a close matchup that is very variable depending on the day. The games even between you two teams can be so different depending on like who's having a good day, who's had the prep right that day, who's had like 8 shots before they sat down. Like there's a lot of factors that play into these matchups. But when you go into Verdant, do you feel like we know how to plan against this team and you're just mis-executing on the day, or do you feel like they're a tough team to prepare to? Because it seems like these series are so wildly different every time.
Yeah, it's odd. I feel like Verdant are clearly, it's clearly Verdant and us in the league, and they're a lot harder to prep for than the other teams. That's for sure. It doesn't help that we've got mates on Verdant as well, so
Yeah.
we kind of know how they play, so we should be able to
Uh-huh.
plan well against them. But I think we'll be fine in the final on Saturday. It's just that I think all of us had a bad day on the same day.
Mhm.
Specifically, some of us, we had some pretty bad ones, me included. Like
Yeah.
nothing fell together on that day, and we weren't gelling at all. So it will be
Yeah.
different next time. I'm
Mhm.
not too worried. I don't think we'll get smashed, and I'm pretty sure we'll give him a good series. We'll probably beat him, but we'll
Yeah,
see what
there you go.
happens.
Probably beat him, I guess. That's pretty conclusive. The last thing to touch on is just the mid lane coming out of this game, because we did see the classic Eero Cassiopeia. We saw great series from him going up against BO3 in the finals, another like very tenured mid laner, though not one perhaps with EMEA Masters experience, but we'll take it. So what is the attitude going for you guys in the mid 2v2? Because you focus a lot on top lane this game, but do you feel like Erol like needs or asks for you to play around him a lot? Do you feel like is he just kind of on it? Is he just kind of managing his own game a lot of the time, or what is it like playing with Erol, someone who is traditionally such a I'll just get out of the 1v3 gank myself kind of guy, at least from us watching?
I mean, it's not like we don't want to play around him. We do. I love playing around him. I think for most of the split, I have been trying to get him fed.
Yeah. Mhm.
And in this game, in the second game, I tried to at the start. Didn't go so well in mid lane. But
Yeah.
it's not that I don't feel like he begs for help all the time.
Uh-huh.
He's clearly a really good player, and he doesn't need constant babysitting. And when I can help him, I will, because I know that he'll be
Yeah.
able to carry from there. I know he's got the
Pays off.
capability of that. So I don't
Yeah.
think it's a case of, oh, we have an EU Masters mid laner. We need to play with for him every game. Like we've got talent
Mhm.
everywhere else as well. So
Yeah.
it balances itself out. And he was a bit sad that we got him a bit behind on mid lane this game, and he was asking for a bit of help, but that's justified.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's a
yeah, I think
one-off.
he's probably earned a small request. Please, can I maybe have another shot at that? Because this is not what I signed up for in the smaller matchup.
Yeah.
Okay, but yes, thank you very much, Crisis, for talking to us. Congratulations again on the conclusive win, and we look forward to see that matchup against Verdant on Saturday in the grand finals.
Thanks, Trajan. We're beasts.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get the decks back in here and break down that win in a little bit more detail. Welcome back, Chibi. Welcome back to Zapdos. 2-0 for Ruddy, and ending up being a pretty dominant win. Now, this game, though, as we got into it, a lot of us took a quick break, went for toilet breaks, went to get something to drink, and I joked before I left that, I can't wait to come back to see that Timo Topper's gotten 5 kills at level 1. Haha, good one. Excellent joke by me. And then we come back, and as soon as I sit down, Zathos, what is it that I see? I see the triple kill coming in. Break down what went on in this mid lane, because you were very happy with how Paragon played it out.
Oh yeah, I was so happy because logistically they should not have had any opportunity in this 3 versus 3. So of course Tim the Topper has the E flap if he wants to try and get him out to safety. So first of all, he does get CC'd up, but he flashes overwards. So of course everybody else are trying to get over towards himself. But you see this juggling of the amount of damage. You see the 3-man Rel, of course, having the W from the Xingqiao, dies afterwards. But Smolder being untouched in this whole fight, able to keep auto-attacking, finding that double kill. And from a 3 versus 3, they were never able to win. They get themselves a triple kill onto the Smolder. And of course, finding that flash Q at the end is the style you need. And it's super disappointing the Paragon didn't win the game after this. But that just shows a lot of prowess from this team and how much growth they've had to be able to compete with a team like Ruddy.
I do have to offer a response to Rob's, chatting that we saw on screen during the game. Does Rob think that BLG would have won if they had Smolder 3-0, in that game? Do you think BLG would have won that game? Maybe?
Yeah, 100%.
I kind of feel like they might have. I kind of feel like Knight might have taken that one to the finish line. But anyway, so this we did come in as like, this is like the Doctor Strange. This is the one future where Paragon can win this game, and they got the one future. They got the Smolder massive acceleration from the starting block, and it looked like they were going to translate that into a nice extension bot lane off the Ziggs and the Rel, playing pretty well into the, as Shibby, as you had expected, the abandoned Varus as the Blitzcrank have moved away. But if we roll the second replay, Shibby, why don't you tell us a little bit about how that bot lane plan would turn out?
Yeah, I mean, Blitz leaving is really good here, but Sin just having an absolute monster moment on the Varus, absolutely just growing a pair there, and like, you know what, I'm gonna get Dove. I'm gonna take as many as I can with me. Somehow gets the wave, and off the back end, Snapex ends up dying to the turret. He got stun locked. I'm pretty sure he just was in absolute awe and amazement of the balls on Sin. Like, straight up, that guy puts his pants on one leg at a time. He's too massive.
He's hands off the keyboard, absolute cinema, with the tower shots are just raining down on himself. He's like, I can't respond to this. This is whatever, man. And it compared to that mid lane play, which takes a while as it kind of turns towards Paragon and they end up taking control of it, that bot lane just kind of, it snaps open like that, and suddenly Sin's like, nah, I'm going for the kill. 1 down, 2 down, and Snapex is tripped over and stood on a rake in the background. Like, it's crazy for Sin to pull out a play like this. Perfect timing after I've been singing his praises all day and calling him an MVP caliber player. Another clip for the bank, ladies and gentlemen. That is how this guy works. So excellent play by him. And that just kind of, it stops them losing 2 lanes, right? We already spoke a little bit about the pressure that was going on to that top lane. Shibby, you mentioned as well that, we're putting so much pressure through top lane. Kenji is not being able to play the game. And then Akkers ended up kind of fulfilling that E-roll position in this game of really making sure the game was won at the end of it.
Yeah. It was tough because I stepped away for a bit in the beginning. I come back, Tim Topper's 3-0. I'm like, oh, Paragon's got this. And then I come back and Sin makes that play. And then Ruddy kind of just like go forward, right? Kenji unfortunately got a warm welcome to playoffs. The Sejuani Jax unfortunately just absolutely hammered him in that top side, like you mentioned, and they kind of just ran away with the game, right? Once you kind of concede all these objectives, Chemtech Dragon got taken, Chemtech Soul was taken, and it felt like after that bottom lane play and those 3 dives that happened topside, Ruddy kind of just had complete control of the map, and it felt like Paragon were just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and unfortunately, they just did not have the late game capabilities to kind of deal with what Ruddy had.
Yeah, they went for the scaling. They had the ultimate scaler in Smolder, they had the Ziggs, and it just, once again, it did not pay off. They were not given the time to achieve it. We'll take a look. We'll sign off in just a moment, but Zapdos, any last thoughts on this series? The 2-0 from Ruddy, the fashion in which it was done, the drafting, Paragon dropping at third tier. Any last thoughts before we move on?
I just think it was an absolutely exhilarating 2 games we got to see, and I can't wait to see that finals as well. As the last major thing I want to talk about, Ruddy, is every single member of this team can go for these outplays, especially in that last game. We saw that Sin was the hyper carry to get themselves back into it, but it was actually Akers utilizing him to be able to get these side lane towers to finish off the game. So in the finals, it's not just going to be about mid. It's not going to be about this AD carry. It's going to be collectively as a team about who could really take it and get themselves over the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get that finals matchup on the screen right here. It is becoming, I think it has become, everybody, the El Clasico here in the Four Nations. Verdant in the UK League of Legends scene, Verdant and Ruddy Esports have emerged at the top. Time and again, we see these teams playing against each other, and it is a banger every single time. I spoke about it a little bit with Crisis. We were speaking about it in the green room. Every time this matchup plays out, it's different every single time. It can be blowouts, it can be close, it can be crazy, it can be not crazy. We just have no idea what to expect from these players, except we know that these are the top teams in UK League right now, and we're going to see another matchup for them on Saturday, so we cannot wait to see it. Thank you so much, Shibby and Zapdos, for joining me on the desk for a 2-0 from Ruddy over Paragon. Thank you, Casual Cutie, on the broadcast production as always. Thank you, Crisis, for joining us in the interview, and thank you, Luna and Rory B, for another excellent set of casts. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We will see you on Saturday for the conclusion of the Autumn Split, the grand final, the conclusion of Four Nations in 2024. Everybody, you do not want to miss it. You know this matchup always delivers, and we cannot wait to see it with you on Saturday. Good night.